Welcome everybody to Orange Nerd Live. We are talking all about Lucasfilm Star Wars Celebration 2023. Right now, let's nerd out on OG 55 Live. Everybody, welcome aboard to another episode of the Orange Nerd Show. In this episode, we're just talking all about Star Wars Celebration. We're going to break down all the announcements. We're going to talk about the trailers. We're going to talk about Kathleen Kennedy. We're talking about all of it. But before we do that, I want to introduce my fantastic panel today. Right over here, we got Dr. Dre VashSky, host of the Freshly Squeezed show here on the channel. Dre, welcome aboard, brother.
Hey, and I'm happy to be aboard. This is quite an interesting couple of days. I believe Star Wars Celebration is still going on today, right? Or just
it was the last day, right?
Yeah, today was the last day.
Today was the last day. Okay, cool. I just wanted to go ahead and clarify. We've had a number of days of very interesting announcements, and I cannot wait to get the entire panel's opinion about what they saw here, because some people, hey, they're really excited, and some people not so much. So it'll be really interesting to get these guys' opinion in front of me. But if you want to, view my opinions on Twitter, you can go and do so right down there at VashSky. Just go ahead and type it in. It should pop up for all the, as Christine Wastelands McCarthy would say, for all the
robust
discussion right there. It's interesting. I haven't heard much from her. I'm still waiting. But if you guys want to see more where I am, well, that's going to be at Orange Grove 55, where we have some amazing shows. Story Geeks with Jay, hosted by the wonderful person below me right now, where we are covering every single episode of The Mandalorian as they come out. This next episode should be a doozy, so you guys want to tune in, not just for the actual episode itself, but our show breaking it all down. We have amazing shows like Citrus Corner, where we talk about all things Walt Disney World, Orange Nerd, where we talk about all the stories that affect our lives, including, well, Star Wars Celebration, and my own show, Freshly Squeezed, your source for juicy news and info, squeezed fresh, right from the Grove. And because, it is Star Wars, right? So
Yes, absolutely. I love that little jingle. Down below, we got Jay Shear, host of the Story Geek Show here on the channel. Jay, welcome aboard, sir.
It's good to be here. We've been talking all about Mando. Now we've got all the announcements of what's coming next. Should be a fun time. It's going to be wild. But if you want to follow me on Twitter, right here at Jay Shear, check it out there. Special shout out to Matthew Muir in the chat, because he said he like button force smashed. He force smashed that like button. Nice job, Matthew.
Yes.
Hope you guys will also, everybody out there will force smash that like button for us as we get into Star Wars Celebration.
Absolutely. All right, let's dive right in. So now we're going to kind of break it down. First thing on the menu, I'm going to go ahead and share your screen, Dre. I think the Star Wars website kind of breaks it down kind of perfectly. We'll kind of go through little, bit by bit and kind of talk about this, all the good stuff. So this is a day by day. Now Thursday was just the Lego announcement, I believe, so we can kind of skip that. Unless you guys want to talk about that, it's up to you.
Okay. I think everybody's waiting for some of these big trailers so forth that were announced as part of the studio panel on that day, which we can see a little bit of a highlight reel right here. Can't play any music, obviously, so I'm sure I got this all muted. But the Star Wars studio panel actually took place, and I'm telling you, they were all out there, all in force. Got Kathleen Kennedy out there. Obviously, you have some of the stars from some of those amazing shows that we have been watching and have yet to be released, like Andor, as you're seeing right there, the Acolyte, also to Ahsoka. So I thought that was pretty cool to actually see. We got some things that were teased there that haven't actually been officially released. Some things have, like the Ahsoka trailer, let's say. The Indiana Jones 5 trailer. But I don't know, from this highlight reel right here, you'd think it's pretty positive, the reception.
Yeah. And I think for the most part it was, except the thing that kind of here's the issue with Lucasfilm right now. We're going straight into it, right? Here's the thing with Lucasfilm right now, and then we'll dive into some of the details regarding these trailers and everything. But the problem with Lucasfilm is that we have a problem with Kathleen Kennedy in the sense that where her, on her watch, we've had a lot of announcements, a lot of things that we're buzzed about and everything like that, and then stuff happens. Directors fall off, projects get canceled, what have you. We've seen this over and over and over and over again. So while all the announcements and what they showed us at Star Wars Celebration was dope as hell, it in the back of every fan's mind is like, well, are any of these things actually going to happen? We've been here before, right? Fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me, kind of thing. But what do you think, Jay, in regards to this? I mean, the overall, announcements, the overall energy. Where do you stand with what we got from Celebration, and where do you stand with in terms of it actually happening?
Yeah, so I sent these guys a DM on Twitter earlier, just like cataloging all of the things that Star Wars has said that they were going to do and then canceled or changed in some way. Changed directors, changed the structure of, like, Kenobi was going to be a movie at first, now it's a series. I mean, the list is like a dozen deep, if not more.
Right.
And I think, that's literally unprecedented in Hollywood. Like, Hollywood used to be like, you do not announce it until it has been greenlit, until it has like an associated development plan, until it's usually pretty far into its development. In Star Wars history, George Lucas would go out and say, like, we're working on Blue Harvest. And then he'd like, that was like Return of the Jedi or whatever, if I'm not mistaken. And he would go out and he'd do this whole secret movie. And everyone knew it was Return of the Jedi, probably. But it was one of those things where, like, this style of saying, we're going to do a bunch of stuff that either never comes to fruition or is changed significantly along the way, makes these kind of events, to me, almost like it's almost like a joke. It's almost like you're going to come pay us for us to tell you what we're going to do, but psych, we're not going to do it. Like, it's just, it's very, very, very odd. So there's some things that I'm very excited about, but with Star Wars, my thing is, until it has actual footage, not even sizzle reel stuff, because I have no clue where the Acolyte actually is at, based on all of the rumors we were hearing.
Right.
Like, until it has an actual, like, trailer or footage that they're showing you, like, that has a due date on when it's going to be released, I honestly don't really trust it at this point. I don't see how I could, like, it's, they don't. We'll probably get into this, but Kathleen Kennedy was talking about the Rey film and said that they were going to start it in 6 weeks, and they haven't even started a script.
Right.
Like, what in the world? It doesn't make any sense.
It makes no sense. It feels like, in my opinion, then I'll get to you, Dre, right away. I just want to say something real quick. It feels like Kathleen Kennedy knew she had to really come with it at this celebration, and she knew that they needed like big things and cool things for the fans to kind of generate buzz. But so she crafted like a bunch of stuff to announce and to, like, get people hyped without any real like substance behind these announcements. So like nothing is really behind the scenes even being really worked on yet. It's like, well, these are kind of cool. Let's announce them, get the fans hyped, because I need this right now. Because, Iger's on this whole accountability train thing, right? So let's announce a bunch of stuff, and then we'll worry about making it later.
Like how she's applied. She's applied the very same reasoning throughout her entire career at Lucasfilm. We'll just announce a whole bunch of stuff, and then don't worry, majority of it will get made. We'll have some drop off, but don't worry. Not knowing that most of it would get dropped off. I mean, Jay, I think you, like you said, you sent a DM, and can I read it?
Please.
Because I thought it was pretty good. Jay says, I started to look up Star Wars projects, but never completed or completed a completely different way. Benioff and Weiss trilogy, Rian Johnson trilogy, Kevin Feige's movie. We'll get to that in a moment.
Yes.
Patty Jenkins movie, solo directors, Lord and Miller, project scrapped and Ron Howard brought in. Yep, Gareth Edwards handed off research to Tony Gilroy. Did he hand them off, or were they taken from him? It's always been a very interesting. He didn't get final edit, which is wild. Do not have a director get that. Colin Trevorrow's third film shelved, given to J.J. Abrams. Boba Fett became a TV show. Yep, Josh Trank, who everybody remembers that. Way back.
The
back
Boba
when
Fett
this first
movie,
declared.
right?
Yep. Scrap that. That was changed several times, actually. I think Jon Favreau himself wanted to make it a movie, but c'est la vie. Kenobi became a TV show. Yep, Rangers of the New Republic. Not talked about. Yeah, J.D. Dillard's project shelved. I haven't heard of this one. There's even more than that, if you can possibly believe it. We've now heard of the Damon Lindelof thing, the Taika Waititi thing, which I'm not thinking that's going to happen. You ask him, and he's half in, half out. Obviously, the damaged relationships with Hollywood, not even regarding some of the people that we just mentioned, but also too, like Karen McCarthy, for example. So. Yeah, I think, and I was telling OG over the phone, the Star Wars Studios panel. I mean, if you're gonna announce projects, I think this is the way you do it, especially now that trust has been broken. You can't just do the Kevin Feige thing, right? Just walk out on stage and have a whole backdrop behind you of all the projects coming out. It's just not going to work. There's just too many broken promises. So what they do this time? Well, they actually had cast and crew come out. I understand that these things aren't super far along, but the cast and crew at least give it a kind of a foundation that people can point to, recognize, okay, like, at least we got people in the room this time. At least we got people on stage and excited about whatever they're doing, if they'll even do it at all. But it's fascinating how this whole thing is developed. And honestly, Kathleen Kennedy's response to it. In fact, she was actually asked about the Kevin Feige film and what was going on with that, the status of that. Is it truly canceled? Is it not? She said this, and I thought this was super fascinating. Quote, well, those things haven't been shelved. They haven't been shelved. Development is a complicated long-term process. Some people were dealing with scheduling because obviously really talented people are working. So it's often not a shelving. It's more like, is it ready? That's really what it comes down to. Kevin's project was something announced in the press or I suppose the fandom, but nothing ever got developed. We never discussed an idea. Everyone knows Kevin is a huge Star Wars fan. If he did come up with something, I'd be all ears. But that's not really happened, so it's not an abandoned project. It just never really happened. Well, that's a weird thing.
Well, this is the interesting thing about that. She says, okay, so the Kevin Feige Star Wars movie was just sort of like, she kind of paints it as like this thing that was sort of rumored amongst fan circles. Like, oh, it's out there on Reddit and stuff, right? But we weren't really working on that. Like, that's the kind of the energy she's bringing. Right. Do you know who broke this story? The Hollywood Reporter.
You can go and share my screen right there.
The Hollywood Reporter, okay? This is the Hollywood Trade right here.
Star Wars shocker, Marvel's Kevin Feige developing a new movie for Disney. Exclusive. Kevin Feige has met with Disney brass to discuss the possibility of producing a Star Wars movie, sources tell The Hollywood Reporter. And they didn't just get anybody on record for this. They actually got Alan Horn, which, if you know, was the head of all the Star Wars studios at that time. Alan Horn says here, we are excited about the projects Kathy and the Lucasfilm team are working on, not only in terms of Star Wars, but also Indiana Jones, reaching into other parts of the company, including Children of Blood and Bone with Emma Watson and Fox. Yeah, that didn't happen. And that's not happening because they lost the rights to it. So add that one to the list. With the close of the Star Wars saga, Kathy is pursuing a new era in Star Wars storytelling, and knowing what a diehard fan Kevin is, as in Kevin Feige, it made sense for these two extraordinary producers to work on a Star Wars film together. That's a little different than the let's see. If he did come up with something and we never discussed an idea. Those are direct quotes right there.
Yeah.
I'll have to save this quote and put it up on the screen.
You know what
there,
that sounds like? You know what that sounds like, Dre? It sounds like you two need to play together nicely, and then they never talk to each other afterwards.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, that the Kevin Feige thing. When they announced that, I'm like, this is a huge risk for Kathleen Kennedy because Kevin Feige, even right now, Marvel's taken some hits, but it's still wildly more successful, I think, than what Lucasfilm has been doing, right? And Feige is a beloved figure amongst the fans. You have Kevin Feige, who is much more liked than a Kathleen Kennedy. You have Kevin Feige try to play in her sandbox, and he crushes, that makes her look bad. Yeah. There's no way, this was dead on arrival with the Feige thing. There was no way that she would allow that and be kind of outshined in her own studio. I mean, it was dead on arrival in a lot of ways.
Yes.
You know?
Yes, absolutely. And then it's fascinating because OG, I think you first brought it up on the phone, and I completely agree with you. It's like she's kind of responding to these dead projects that have been attached to her name as head of Lucasfilm in a way that's like dismissive, like it just didn't happen, just gaslighting, just like, what are you talking, what? This wasn't really announced, this wasn't really, it's just in the press or something, fandom maybe, but there was nothing there. And it's like, Alan Horn talking about that seems a lot more substantial than you're making it out to be. So it's just this kind of this reforming of the truth and this kind of establishment of this new narrative to try to hide these projects that are really starting to pile up here. And like I said, the damage that she's done with relationships with talent, like I said, the Karen McCarthy thing, look, maybe she's not a huge player in the game, but that lawsuit being litigated, being public like that, it's basically a warning to everybody in talent, and everybody in Hollywood, the industry, so forth. Hey, if you want to do a Star Wars, anything, and will be anything attached to those, don't expect to get paid. Right. That's not a good place to be.
Yeah. And our friend Alia Aloha says here, what's great is what Matt Bellani confronted her in the live with Puck last night. LOL, that is high profile. Yeah, Matt Bellani, for those of you that don't know, are not aware of who he is. He is very much an insider. Okay, this guy has been on the record saying he's had lunches with Bob Iger. Okay. And he called out Kennedy for the BS last night. So, yeah, there's a lot of games afoot with this. But let's talk now about what was announced and kind of go from there, and what was kind of released at Celebration, because there's a lot here that I think is pretty interesting. Let's go ahead and so the first thing that was announced, we have 3 new movies, right, from the studio that they're announcing. Three new movies announced. So we got...
Sorry, I was muted.
Go ahead.
3 new Star Wars movies announced. As if there wasn't already enough excitement from Star Wars Celebration Europe, the Lucasfilm Studio Showcase also made a major reveal that we're totally hyped about. Okay, that's tough there. 3 new Star Wars films are in our future to be directed by James Mangold, Dave Filoni, and Sharmeen Obaid-Chinoy. Mangold's film will be set during the dawn of the Jedi, telling the story of the early Force users, while Filoni's film pulls together the threads from recent Disney Plus series. That is an interesting thing we'll talk about in a moment. Obaid-Chinoy's film comes with another surprise. Daisy Ridley joined Obaid-Chinoy to reveal that she'll be returning as Rey to tell a story set 15 years after Star Wars: The Rise of Skywalker, centered around rebuilding the Jedi Order and the powers, the rise to tear it down.
Okay.
That rise to tear it down. Sorry, bad copy by D23 here.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, we know our movie-going plans for the next few years, and then if you want to see the timeline that they just announced along with this is kind of how they're organizing it and how they're structuring it. So we have to assume that James Mangold's film will be taking place in that Dawn of the Jedi era, right there at the very left of this frame here. The Dave Filoni film is going to be taking place during the New Republic era, as we see it right here. That's where the Mandoverse is currently taking place. And then the new Rey film will be taking place in the New Jedi Order era. So I think that's how they're kind of establishing this. And it's good to kind of have this all laid out and kind of have a visual representation of what's actually going on here. The only one that we've not really seen anything from, maybe some comics, maybe some books, the Old Republic. It just sits there waiting, right? And I think they want to keep it waiting there maybe until new leadership is brought in, but that's a whole other story.
You know, it's interesting. Out of these three movies, I think the James Mangold one is the most exciting. Dawn of the Jedi. I'm like you, Jay. I'm a huge Mangold fan. I think he's absolutely brilliant. And he described this as sort of like a very biblical kind of story, like very much like the Ten Commandments, the birth of the Jedi. I think that's a fascinating kind of concept. Jay, I know you're a big Mangold fan. What are your overall thoughts on that movie, Dawn of the Jedi?
I think, and again, this comes with a huge asterisk. So, I mean, I think I'll say this very frequently, but like, it has to come with, first of all, his Indiana Jones film has to do well at the box office.
Right.
If it doesn't do well at the box office, the chances of this getting made at all are basically nil. And a lot of that might be Lucasfilm saying maybe this is not the guy who needs to do stuff, but a lot of it will probably also be James Mangold saying, I don't really want to play in the Lucasfilm sandbox because I don't like the way that they treat the folks that are involved, right? So now, James Mangold's resume, I was listening to John Campia's show from Friday where they talked about this same thing, and he only got me more hyped about it because his resume is phenomenal. Like, most of the movies that he has done are bangers. They're awesome. I would, 310 to Yuma, I think is a fantastic film, James Mangold film, right? So his track record is phenomenal. I think that taking it, we've talked about this a lot. I've talked about this a lot with Modern Mouse, Josh Taylor, taking us out of this current era and moving us into a different era is sort of essential for Star Wars right now. So let's stop seeing the same stuff. Let's reboot with new characters. Let's see new things. So it is by far the thing that was announced that I am most positive about and most looking forward to. Great idea, really interesting idea. I think it's fantastic. I just don't know it's getting made. Like, I do think that of all the things that Kathleen Kennedy has announced, if you brought new leadership in, that's one of the things that I think that they would say, like, yeah, this is a no-brainer. Let's continue this one. But if Kathleen Kennedy stays in the seat for 2-3 more years, I think it will die on the vine like all the other projects have. That's my personal thought. I don't know how we get past that.
It's interesting with this Mangold thing because there's a pro and a con with this whole thing. The pro is that he's already done a movie with Kennedy, which is in D5, right? And it seemed to go okay because he didn't get cut from the squad halfway through it, right? like Lord Miller. So he's already worked with her. So that he's got that on his side.
That's a huge positive. Yep.
That's a huge positive. Mm-hmm. The only negative, I think, the only risk in regards to him is that I hope he doesn't get. I hope that he doesn't have the same fate as like a Patty Jenkins or a Rian Johnson. Remember. Yes. Same thing kind of happened with Rian Johnson and Patty Jenkins. They got, and even kind of Taika Waititi, right? We're hearing his film. She signed these folks up, and then they had a movie that didn't do well after they got signed up, and then they got cut from the squad. So if the Indy 5 doesn't do well, like you said, Jay, is he going to stay on for the Dawn of the Jedi? What if Indy 5 is panned by fans and they hate it? What's going to happen to his Star Wars film? Is he going to get Rian Johnson? Is he going to get Patty Jenkins? I don't know. That's what scares me. What do you think, Dre?
I mean Jay brought up the best point of all, which I think is it's all predicated on the Indy 5 film. To be honest with you, it's like if this thing is really successful, you can see James Mangold, being brought back in and doing this. Maybe he does Lucasfilm, does Indy 5 with Lucasfilm and says, hey, you know what? I know we talked about that Dawn of the Jedi thing, but I don't know. Maybe I want to do my own thing based on any number of litany of issues going on behind the scenes. Or, hey, they just want to cut ties with him because Indy 5 wasn't all that successful. It's that I think is kind of up in the air. I will say OG, he's already in the building, so... there's kind of a repertoire there, but it's conditional, so we will absolutely see. I think the two most likely things that are happening probably going to be that Rey film, only because I think Rey is still very marketable. I think they do want to salvage as much as they can from the actual sequel trilogy because they've invested so much in it, and it's Kathleen's Star Wars, it's Disney's Star Wars, right? They want to see that thing through to fruition. looked as a positive, successful, all those things, because I know they have to know there's a negative reception out there. I think they do, and this kind of could right a lot of those wrongs. So I think they do see value in that, and also I think the most interesting one, I think, and the one I would think is most likely going to happen no matter what, is Dave Filoni's film.
Right.
Just because, that's an established universe. There seems to be a lot of fanfare even now for Ahsoka and its trailer that they just released for it. And we'll break that down in a moment, guys. Don't worry. But that one has a lot of momentum heading in that direction. It's interesting because they're implementing, one of my ideas, right? It's like somebody watches the show, but it's interesting. I had always said for a long time, like, hey, maybe don't do films exclusively and don't do television shows exclusively, right? Or streaming series shows exclusively. You can interplay between them. Where you have a few of the series with their seasons come out and then a movie, and a few more seasons and series come out and then a movie. In this case, they're going to play to the events of The Mandalorian, Ahsoka, and any other thing that they want to establish in this Mandoverse, Book of Boba Fett, etc., and then have it all culminate in this kind of endgame film project directed by Dave Filoni. And that's a really, really cool thing. It's not something we've seen before in the modern era. I think what was it? X-Files did this, where they had, series, come out, and then it was like, ooh, let's do a feature film. I think they maybe did 2, if I'm not mistaken. So we haven't seen this idea birthed into the modern context yet. And I think there are definitely, if this concept is successful, this opens the doors to a lot of things for sure.
Yeah, the Filoni movie is highly anticipated by fans. Filoni, much like a Feige, fans love him. He's done great work. He has a great track record. And like you said, Ray, it's a really smart idea to sort of incorporate the Mandoverse and have it culminate with this big theatrical movie. I think that's really, really, really smart. I love that idea. And I agree with you. I think that because, again, kind of plays to like the the Mangold thing, where he's worked with Kennedy and he's sort of proven that he can do that and see it all the way through with Indy 5. Filoni has even more of that behind him. He's really worked with Kennedy. So I think his is pretty safe. The Rey movie is interesting. Now, I actually think, and Jay, we've talked about this on Twitter DMs, how like it wasn't so much the sequel, it wasn't so much the sequel characters that were bad, it was the story, right?
Yeah.
And so, like, and I agree with you on that. I think that when you said that I think you touched upon a great point. It's not that Rey's a bad character, it's that she wasn't utilized great in these movies. And I think there's potential there to sort of go in there and sort of make right and sort of give this character a proper film and kind of energize the character again, much kind of very similar to what Lucas did with the prequels. When those prequels came out, I know it's different now, but when the prequels came out, fans did not love those movies. And then George said, you know what, we're going to double down on the prequels. We're going to do the Clone Wars series. And through the Clone Wars series, which was done very well, it's sort of garnered a lot more positive energy around that era and what have you, through fantastic characters and what have you. Even in that that very first Clone Wars animated movie, Ahsoka was absolutely hated. I don't know if you guys remember this in the fandom.
Yes. Oh, hated.
Fans thought she was annoying, and then now she's one of the most beloved Star Wars characters of all time. So this can be done. I know people don't like Rey, and there's a segment out there that think that, oh my gosh, she's a strong woman and yada yada yada. But I think there is a roadmap to this character being really, really dope if done right. That's the caveat: if done right. There's potential there. But here's the slippery slope. Here's the con for this whole thing. You're making a movie about Rey, so you're already energizing certain people. Oh my God, it's Rey, right? Number one. Then you hire a director who's basically an activist with Charmin.
Yeah.
Right? It's a recipe. Like, this is the thing that frustrates me about Lucasfilm, right? And I'm not big on the culture war. I'm really honestly kind of freaking tired of it, to be quite honest with you.
So tired. It's done.
It's so done. It's so exhausting. I just want to talk about this stuff without all that crap involved. but she's handing people on a silver platter fuel to the fire with this. It's Rey. It's an activist director. Like, what is she thinking? Bob Iger is going out there saying we want to get out of politics. We want to have more four-quadrant stuff, less controversial stuff that everyone can enjoy. And Kennedy's like, nope. Not on my watch. We're doing a Rey movie with an activist director. And I'm like, it's frustrating as all hell.
Well, you know why that might be, right? Let's take a look at an interview real fast.
Yeah. Let's do
the
it.
one, the only, Kathleen Kennedy. And she says something really, really telling here on the stage floor here. Hopefully I got it at the right part. We'll see. We'll find out. We'll find out together, guys. It's live.
Here for Star Wars storytelling has really evolved a lot in the last decade. To you, what makes a great Star Wars story?
What makes what? Sorry?
What makes a great Star Wars story?
Oh gosh, I think there's many things that make a great Star Wars story. You know, the incredible thing that George left us was amazing mythology. And it's very expansive and it has meaning. That was the thing that George said to me over and over again, is whatever you do, make sure it has meaning. And I think that's what resonates with so many of us who love Star Wars, is it makes you feel something. And that's what we try to do with every single story we tell, is we're just trying to create characters that people can relate to and you have some connection to.
Okay, so not the greatest answer, and I'll explain that in a moment, but I think after this, here we go.
And when you look out at these cosplays, I think we can say a lot of people have a deep, deep connection to some of those characters. They want to walk around all day in those costumes. They want to bring them to life from animation. But you're also evolving the Star Wars storytelling quite a bit. When you're developing new talent to bring into the fold, can you quantify what you look for?
So, what would you look for? Just as a game, right, that we can play. What would you look for, OG and Jay? What when you're bringing in Star Wars, prospective Star Wars talent, what would you look for in the individuals that you bring on?
Go ahead, Jay. I'll start with you.
So if it's me, and the one part of her answer, by the way, she was not prepped for that question, which is completely insane. Like if I was Kathleen Kennedy, you give me every question you're going to ask me before I get on that stage.
Absolutely.
I am the owner of this company. You can't just like all of a sudden throw me something that I'm confused by. But I think that you're going to go immediately from a storytelling standpoint. I think that you should have two things in mind. One thing is that you have storytellers who have handled mythological stories in the past and handled them well. The other thing I think you're going to look for, because those people are expensive, people like, a Steven Spielberg, a James Mangold, like those are expensive people. So the second thing you're going to look for is you're going to look for new visionary people that you're going to pair those people with. I mean, Filoni has said multiple times, thank God I've got Jon Favreau, because I don't know how to do a lot of this stuff and he does, and he helps me out. I think that's the kind of system that you want. You don't want to ping pong around between here's a new up and coming person. Oh wait, they had 2 bad films. Maybe they're not up and coming. You're out. Here's a person who's great, but I can't really afford them at this point. So I guess we'll just let that movie slide. Right? Like that doesn't make any sense to me. So in my mind, you want proven track record with mythology. And when I say that, what I mean is some sort of science fiction, some sort of fantasy background that they can draw from. And then somebody who is up and coming in that space, not somebody who's going to do I hope that Charmin is awesome. Don't get me wrong. I hope that she's awesome, but the kinds of stories that she's told already, everyone keeps saying oh, well, she directed 2 episodes of Ms. Marvel. And I'm like, that's not a lot. There were the 2 people from Batgirl movie that directed Ms. Marvel, if I'm not mistaken. And that movie was so bad that Zaslav literally canceled the whole thing as if it was already being filmed. So you can't just give now that's not on them. That's on whoever hired them and the kinds of support that were given to them as well. So that would be my answer. That's how I would hire people. And then if you're talking about actors, I like actually George's strategy better than anybody else's, which is and honestly, like the sequel trilogy did this pretty well. Let's bring in people that you don't recognize, and so that we can kind of form them into whatever we want it to be. So that would be my answer.
Well, yeah, and absolutely, Jay. I mean, George Lucas was very much about like not hiring people that are super famous already. I know that Leonardo DiCaprio was in the running for Anakin. And one of the reasons why he didn't pick Leo was because he was a little too famous at the time. And he didn't want you to, when you were watching this, to look and see Leo. Kind of like the recent episode of Mandalorian when everyone looked and saw Jack Black and Lizzo and Christopher Lloyd. It's hard to get past that. So what do? You cast a Hayden Christensen as Anakin, an unknown, and then now you associate this guy with Anakin. It's not Hayden, right? And so I think that's important. In terms of like directors and who to bring on board, yeah, Jay, you hit the nail on the head here. You gotta have people that have a proven track record in the kind of space that you're playing in, right?
Yeah.
So if you're gonna do a big Star Wars adventure film, you're going to want to look for people that have kind of dabbled in that big kind of adventure space, you know? So guy like Steven Spielberg, I know he won't do Star Wars because he's respecting his friend George, but that would be a guy like, okay, so he's done Indiana Jones. He's had all this history with these great adventure films. He would be great for it. He understands tone very well. That's the kind of stuff you want to look for, right? You want to be able to match the person with the story that you're telling. Okay. And I think that's an issue that Kennedy has, is that she's not doing that. What she's doing is, you had a hit movie, you're going to get a Star Wars movie now. She's done that over and over and over. Jurassic World comes out, that's a big blockbuster. Oh, Colin Trevorrow, how about you come over and do episode 9 for us? Oh, Patty Jenkins, you had a lot of luck with Wonder Woman, that made a lot of money. Oh, come on over and do a Star Wars movie. But you're bringing people over, talented people, but you're bringing people over with the wrong kind of approach. And of course, when you build a house on a shaky foundation, it's going to collapse. You're not bringing them over because this person's right for the story. You're bringing them over because, they just had a hit. Let's bring them on.
Well, it's a shakier foundation than what you would think. She's about to describe it right here for you.
You know, I look for people who have something to say. That's the first thing, is when somebody comes in, they have a love of Star Wars, but the second question is, what do you have to say? What are you trying to say in your storytelling? What's important to you? I often find that I'm talking to people about things that really personally affected them. And they bring that to the character and to the stories, much like you're hearing Dave talk about his experiences in involving the animation he did with Clone Wars, what he's bringing to Ahsoka, and how much it means to him personally. And I think that that's the most important thing with any of the filmmakers we're working with, is to try to excavate that.
Well, see, there's a difference between what Filoni is saying, though. Filoni has, it's special to him because Star Wars is special to him. Filoni isn't going, you know what matters to me? Global warming. So
that's what she's saying right there, right?
So I'm going to make a Star Wars movie about global warming. Well, that doesn't work. Filoni is the biggest Star Wars nerd on the planet. He has a passion for Ahsoka and that character, and that's what's driving him. But it's not these outside political things that he's passionate about. And now we're going to shoehorn it into a Star Wars movie. Go ahead, guys. I'm sorry.
No, you're totally right. Right? It's. This is how she evaluates talent. Got to be a Star Wars fan, but you got to have something to say. And she doesn't mean say something, through the viewfinder that is Star Wars. No. She wants you to bring something from the outside world in, right? She wants you to, hey, you really passionate about, let's say, anti-racism, or are you really passionate about the social issues of the day, or the political issues of the day? We want you to bring that in there. She's saying that right here from her mouth. Right. This is how she evaluates, and not just who she brings in, but probably what projects actually get approved. That is terrible. That is awful. I can't tell you how bad that is.
Well, it's terrible, especially in this environment. Bob Iger is not about that right now. He is not about that. The accountability train is making rounds, and she better be careful because she's acting like it's 2017 all over again.
Yeah, and it's not.
And it's not.
Go ahead.
I think there's something worth talking about here that is somewhat in defense of Kathleen Kennedy and somewhat in showcasing what Kathleen Kennedy is doing wrong. So one of the things I liked about how Star Wars was creating stories is that they were not forcing you to watch every bit of material in order to participate in the films. And so what you had these big trilogy properties, and then you had these kind of side stories. Now, what I think happened was Iger said, Disney Plus is the thing. I need TV shows like crazy. Everybody make TV shows. And then everyone went, okay, we'll make TV shows. And she went in and she said, here's the TV shows. I'm going to give a TV show to this person. I'm going to give a TV show to this person quickly. Greenlight Kenobi so we can get a TV show out there. I don't like what Marvel has done, wherein you need to watch all the things to then understand where the story is going to. I think that was a mistake. I think the better option was doing what Filoni was doing with the Clone Wars, which is you don't need to watch any Clone Wars to understand what's going on in the trilogies. But the Clone Wars is going to make everything cooler if you did watch the trilogies. Right. Here's the problem. Here's the problem where Kathleen Kennedy, I think, made her mistake. I think that Feige basically said, I have a roadmap. You want me to do TV shows? Fine. But we're still headed towards these things. I think he's maybe a little bit too overwhelmed. I think the TV shows are part of that, which is an Iger Chapek problem. But at least Kevin Feige had a place he was going to. Right. I think Kennedy has never had a place that she's going to. She's just looking at, this showed up on my desk. Can I make this actually happen? Remember, she is not that you guys are going to forget. I hate when people say that. Remember, as if like you guys don't remember. And everybody in the chat remembers. Kathleen Kennedy is not the creative force behind everything. She is the money person behind everything. She's the make it happen person. So I think that she's almost like waiting for someone, like even when she says, I want someone to show up on my doorstep, it's almost as if everyone is waiting for her to say, you're the it person. Give me a script in 3 months and I'm starting to start paying you now. And she's just going, well, I mean, they're not doing anything. So I guess it's like, that's not how creative projects get made. You still need to put deadlines on them. You still need to say, Kevin, if you're the guy, I need to have a script on my desk in 8 weeks or whatever. I mean, that's too fast, but you know what I mean? Like, you just got to be in development and be legit. So I feel like the way that she's suffering now, like, look at it this way. All the movies are off the table. She's just focusing on TV shows. It's almost like she didn't have a vision for what was going to come next. Right. And then when someone told her from above, we need more TV shows, she just went, okay, what's on the table for TV shows and what can I greenlight right now? She didn't say, I'll greenlight these TV shows because we also want to do these other movies down the road and it makes sense to connect the two.
Right.
So
thank God you have some people in there like John Favreau and Dave Filoni who are like we can, whatever we're making right now, we can develop into something larger because they're skilled craftsmen at doing that. Because oh my gosh, because you have an architect who just does not know what the shape of the house is going to be, being built by very skilled craftsmen who kind of know what it looks like, and that's what's happening right now. I mean, it's just it's really painful. And actually, too, Kathleen Kennedy, if we go back to this interview, she kind of describes what you just described, Jay. It's really fascinating. I was like, wow, this is interesting.
I appreciate that. One clap for Dave, and then thought that we're going to respectfully listen to the rest of the answer, and then everybody clap.
Oh, when she was coming out, I'll rewind it. When she was coming out, they have this long kind of pan, and everybody's like deadpan. It's so funny. It's hilarious.
Oh, that's rough.
That was good. Of all the moments you've spent in Lucasfilm, what are some of your favorite tiny, just looking around and feeling like life is good moments? Celebration is one for me. When I look around here, I think life is good. Life is very good. But what is it for you, Kathy?
You know, I have to say it is celebration. I mean, I remember when I first started this job, George said to me, you haven't been to a celebration yet, have you? And I said, no. And he said, well, you're about to go. And my first celebration was in Essen, Germany. And it was spectacular. I mean, every moment that I walked around when I first ended up on the stage talking to Warwick, who was interviewing me, the whole thing was just surreal. And now it's become something I look forward to. And I know you guys too. And it's incredible to be able to share this with all of you.
Hera cosplay in the audience.
Yeah, right in the foreground.
Nice.
Yeah.
Now, for the past few years, Star Wars has been primarily in TV series form on Disney Plus streaming. We've, of course, had an embarrassment of riches with The Mandalorian, Obi-Wan Kenobi, Andor.
Embarrassment.
All of the animation. But there was some
Skips
big
over
news
Book of
yesterday
Boba
at the end of the Lucasfilm Showcase panel. We're making, in case you haven't heard, we're making the jump back to movie screens. There were some amazing
real quick. That was the Jeb Bush please clap moment.
Yeah, they have a hype guy audience breakdown, right?
guests yesterday, but one of the surprise guests for me was our own Daisy Ridley. A pretty fantastic moment. So, Kathy, I'm curious, why is it important to you to make that jump while continuing with series, but to make that jump back to the big screen?
You know, what was great for us in many ways is when Disney announced that they were going to move into streaming, to be perfectly honest, none of us really knew what that meant. I mean, I'd never done a lot of television. Jon Favreau had never done a lot of television. He and I were talking about The Mandalorian early on, but at the time, a lot of our discussions were around doing movies. And then obviously the world shut down with the pandemic. So our focus became on television. And what was interesting for all of us at Lucasfilm is we realized what an amazing opportunity to experiment and explore different stories and to do things that we might not necessarily have done in the movie space right away, because the inclination would have been to just carry on with the saga and not necessarily move in these different directions. And what this has ended up doing is it's created this rich landscape for us now to have new characters that we've developed that we can now look at moving into the movie space. And we can do this thoughtfully, and we can do this in a way that I think we can eventize stories again. And isn't that the most important thing in the movie theater? You want to feel like they're seeing something huge.
Thank God they have some pivotal people in this whole relationship right here that can actually do this. Because, I mean, if Dave Filoni and Jon Favreau in the building weren't in the building, where would Lucasfilm be today? I mean, that's a scary question.
No, it is. It is. And she got it wasn't that, like, I get the feeling, and I'm not in the room. I'm full disclosure, obviously I'm not in the room, but it wasn't like this came from like an organic place. Like, it's time to get back into the movies, right? Yeah. It was like, okay, now Bob Iger is telling me I got to make movies. So, hey guys, get back to work on the movies. That's what happened, you know? Yep. That's what happened.
I think for me, what this proves is it proves you've got to understand franchise storytelling the way that Feige does. Because look at James Gunn. He's getting hired by DC to take over everything. Because why? Because he came up with Kevin Feige as an example. But when you don't have a vision for what all is going to occur, and you could probably say the same thing. I haven't watched a lot, or I haven't watched any of Yellowstone and that whole like group of franchise storytelling. But those people that are getting greenlit like crazy, they know where everything is going. They know what the franchise is and what it looks like. But when you hear, like, in this space where you hear Kathleen Kennedy talking, it's very obvious she doesn't have the creative vision, and it's very obvious she just wants to run the things to make the creative vision happen. Well, the problem with that is the creative vision has to come before the resources get assigned. And so this is where she's suffering. And I just wish that Disney would put somebody in place like a Filoni or like a Favreau who had the creative vision. And in that way, Kathleen Kennedy would solve her own problem. She would look amazing if she had that person in place.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. You're absolutely right, Jay. Kennedy is very much a business, dare I say, almost kind of a Bob Chapek in a lot of ways, where she numbers and operationally she gets it, but it's like, man, when it comes to the creative and the vision, she's not there. She is just not there.
Look at this pan over right here when she's walking in
with
her Nikes right here. Cannot play the music, guys.
With the Nikes, huh?
Yeah.
Oh, there she is. She's hip.
Those are dope Nikes, I have to say.
They are pretty dope. Yeah. That's funny.
They look awkward on her though. And then
So
right here,
funny.
here's the pan here. Those are really enthusiastic people to see Kathleen Kennedy on stage.
I
thought
tell ya.
that was kind of fun.
No, that is.
boy.
No, she's not a fan favorite. That's for sure. That's for sure. Now,
You know what? She doesn't even need to be on stage. George Lucas was not good in an interview, and
Yeah.
he did not put himself on stages very often because he knew it. So I don't understand why she feels like she needs to get out there and be on stage either.
It does. I think that's a great point, Jay, and it does more damage than not. Again, it's like Bob
Yes.
Chapek. Like Chapek would have probably been better served just to stay in the C-suite and have someone else that was like the face guy or face gal.
Yeah. Josh D'Amaro could be the face guy, and that would be it.
Right,
Like, just go out and do stuff, Josh.
Yeah, exactly. And for Kennedy, maybe that face guy is Favreau or Filoni or something,
Yeah.
right? And then she just stays kind of in the tower and kind of crunches numbers and does her thing, and that might be the better move. When you put yourself out there and you say stupid shit, it makes it worse.
That's it exactly, right? I
You
mean,
know?
I say this all the time. Like, if you ever see Kathleen Kennedy's interviews about Star Wars and she's asked like specific questions, she will give you the most generic answer and just make it apparent that she has no idea what she's talking about. In fact, I don't know if you guys have ever seen a really bad speech given by our vice president, you know, when it's talking about space or buses or something, and it's like, ooh, man, this is real bad. This does not play well at all. That's kind of Kathleen Kennedy when she's asked about Star Wars. I mean, it's really kind of embarrassing. So
It's
yes,
funny.
I would pull back on her media appearances, have her be out there obviously when these things are announced or whatever, and you know, that way she can get her credit and moment in the sun, which would be well deserved if, you know, a lot of these things were actually produced. We'll see about these latest announcements, but that's where I would limit her for sure.
Absolutely. But now, one thing we know for sure.
Go ahead, Jay. Go ahead, Jay.
Oh,
Well,
Jay,
I was going to
sorry.
say, to your point, OG, to your point you made, imagine Filoni answering those same questions that the host asked Kathy. He would have crushed it. The whole fans in the room would have gone berserk.
Yeah.
Like, it would have been a completely different thing, you know?
Absolutely.
And I have the their John Favreau and Dave Filoni's interview. We can watch it later if you want to, but juxtapose their answers with Kathy's, it's a whole different, just a whole different playing field.
Yeah, and we're hearing, and we're going to pivot to the Ahsoka trailer in just a second, but real quick before we pivot, and I don't know if you guys noticed this, okay? I know a few people, I was watching Den of Nerds this morning, a few people in his live show, like the chat, picked this up, they were talking about it. Favreau, and we're hearing murmurs of drama behind the scenes with Favreau and Kennedy and what have you. And maybe I'm just picking up on it because I'm kind of, that's in the back of my mind. Favreau didn't look like super hyped to be there. I remember when he was like, I think it was Celebration, like a couple of years ago maybe or something, right before Mando premiered in 2019. He was on a panel with Filoni and they were like two kids like just yucking it up, having a good time. You could tell these guys were hyped about this and they were really nerding out together. I didn't get that energy from Favreau this time. I really, really didn't.
I got it right here if we want to play it real quick.
Wait, so Dre, you got the tea? You got the tea, brother?
I got a little bit of tea.
You got a little tea? Okay, let's pour it out.
Now I'll go ahead and let's skip to when they actually walk out, because, like I said, I can't play the music.
Right.
Let's see here, but he goes on both sides of the stage here, and he does kind of play it up for the fans a little bit. But I did notice a weird energy there.
Right?
OG. It was
With
kind of
Favreau
strange.
specifically. Like, Filoni seemed like Filoni. Filoni was doing Filoni things.
Yeah.
Favreau, though, seemed... Favreau seemed a little bit like... deadpan the whole time. Like, he was just, like, super serious. Like, he didn't seem like he had any kind of, like, wow, I'm at Star Wars Celebration. Not like that first panel with Mando a few years ago.
I agree. Here we go. I just have to make sure there's no music playing in the background, or else we're gonna get screwed. Okay.
Yeah.
Here we go. Let's see.
Yeah.
Still playing music.
They're still
So,
clapping.
obviously Filoni's very, very excited about it. But John, it's just a different energy here.
Yeah. It was a different kind of vibe coming from him.
Lukewarm crowd today. Lukewarm crowd.
Well, we got a lukewarm Favreau, that's for sure.
There's
That's
a lot
for
more
sure.
people here than I ever thought.
By the way, this guy is
That door.
the other two hosts. I think are far superior to this dude.
Is
think
this the
so?
Star Wars show guy?
I think
Yeah.
it's a Star Wars
That's
show.
right.
He's on there.
Okay.
That's right. That's Trapper Wolf on stage right now. What kind of a partner is Trapper Wolf sending Carson off by himself all the time? Come on.
Smart.
You see Filoni, he's
I
kind of
stayed
smiling
at
there,
home.
kind of
Had
looking
a
up
lot
at the
of
crowd,
things to do.
playing
Devin,
some
Rick, and I were
jokes.
talking
Watch
about
Favreau, though. The body language,
Paul can go
everything's
off
a
and do
little bit
that,
different.
you know,
Yeah,
that's-
he doesn't
that's
crack a
his job.
smile with the jokes or anything.
We saw you in the lounge there, in the employee lounge. I gotta know, it looked like it was one of your hats, but is that now Disney archival property, that hat?
No, it's not one of my
corrects
hats.
the record by the
Actually,
hat, by the way.
Shauna,
I guess
our
they-
costumer,
they made the
that
hat special
me
for him.
special.
Oh, wow.
So it's a unique hat that I actually don't have. You are right. They have it somewhere in the costume shop.
Does that bug you?
I got the jacket, so I can't really complain. We all got to keep our pilot
great.
jackets.
Oh, wow.
that
He's great,
season. That
yeah.
was kind of the deal to get us back. Because we were all like, John, we're really bringing the quality of the show down when we're there in the background. But he really enjoys it, so we got to keep the leather jackets. I stopped just short of putting my dog in it. I wanted to bring Wolfie along and put him in
This
the
is
shot,
100% what
but
you
I thought
wanna
he'd be
hear from
terrible
people.
continuity.
Absolutely.
Yes.
So we left him out, but yeah.
One day we'll get that dog in there. Do
I
you
got
have,
other
Yeah,
wolves.
100%.
do you have any Paz stuff at home?
No, I have.
Maybe a mug
I've got a
that
little-
says number 2 dad?
No, the one I like is the chainmail Beskar shirt.
Yes.
I have that, and I have a.
That where that went. You have that.
And I have
That is
Dark Saber too. I have one of.
And I won.
That's cool.
And I won.
That's cool. Yeah.
That's impressive.
And a bunch of pop vinyls too. Those
Yes.
are over there.
Yes.
They have some cool stuff, by the way.
They got some great stuff.
Yeah.
So let's talk. I mean, first of all, Mando season 3. You did a little watch-along party for people who were here last night of the latest episode. It has been so fun
Look at his
to
face.
watch the evolution of the show, the exploration.
Like, he just doesn't want to be there. It's really
episode.
interesting.
You know, a procedural.
so glad
I
OG
like
brought
that
this
you-
up, 'cause
that
this
you're
is the exact
exploring
same
this
vibe I got.
space.
Yeah, it
How
just
has the show kind of changed for y'all?
Oh
you
my
could just
gosh,
tell in his
dude.
face,
Kind of
right?
I was just looking at this guy like,
experimentation
why
into
am I
it.
here?
Well, the big
Right.
change is that we went from a very first-person, ground-level adventure with new characters and new planets, slowly working our way into weaving ourselves into the fabric of Star Wars more as we introduce some legacy characters into the second season.
Yeah.
And now with Ahsoka coming out in August, we have a lot of, we're in the same time period. So there's a lot of coordination as to what's happening within that time period, and so we try to keep and preserve the personality of what the show originally was. But every once in a while, the greater galaxy has to rear its head and affect the way things play out.
Yeah.
It's
Like corporate.
it's just not the same Favreau. And I remember those early panels for the Mandalorian, and it was just a different energy. He was really riffing off of Filoni.
Yeah.
You see a lot of these shots, they pan over to him and just
Yeah,
It's
totally.
weird. It's weird. I'll let it play there. It's so strange to see his mannerisms, just to see his kind of like his just deadpan look. It's interesting because even as recently as the Mandalorian season 3 press junket, I mean, he was kind of riffing, he was kind of into it and stuff like this, but man, I don't know. I don't know if we're reading too much into it. I don't know if that stuff is playing out, but he just seems
Oh my gosh!
see.
look at that disinterested.
It's just different. The energy is weird. And even Alia says here, Filoni's having fun. I think they're trying to be more fun than usual to make up for John, right? And John is just meh. And that's a good point Alia brings up here. It's like the host is like over the top, I think they're trying to make up for like the low energy that Favreau is bringing to the table. I don't know, but I saw that throughout Celebration. Every time he got on stage or anytime he was being interviewed, it's like something was on his mind or he wasn't really there. He was physically there, but mentally he wasn't present. and you could see it.
And we're just speculating at this point, but you can imagine, just imagine being in that environment. Kathy Kennedy just said, when we were talking about the whole Star Wars universe, about where we were going, I talked to Favreau about films, and we knew nothing about TV. Now, fast forward to today, where Iger had to come back, take over, and Iger's sitting here going, wow, Star Wars isn't getting me the value that I thought Star Wars was going to when I bought it. So now you have downward pressure on Star Wars. You have Kathleen Kennedy, who's not leading the ship. You probably have Favreau, who's like, do I want to keep playing in this sandbox? Because this is a big mess right now. And I'm not sure I can solve these problems unless they make me the guy. But are they going to make me the guy? And I just showed up to Celebration, and I'm in the midst of maybe he's even having conversations with Iger on the side. Like, hey, if I get rid of Kathy, can you step into these shoes? And he's sitting here going, we're announcing movies I'm never going to make. I mean, that's a thing, right?
Yeah. And that's the interesting thing, Jay, because remember when John wanted to do Mandalorian, that was just it, right? It was just going to be a thing that was going to play out in the Star Wars universe. And now this, all of Lucasfilm kind of hinges, and the momentum hinges on this, multiple series project that they're doing. And that's a lot of downward pressure for sure, Jay. I think that's a great point to bring up. I just thought it was interesting that it was Dave Filoni gets a movie. And it's but you have one of the most talented filmmakers.
Yeah.
Of the modern era, right in there.
Who's done movies before?
Exactly.
Filoni's never done a movie before.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So it's
not only
odd
did he
to
done
me.
movies before, he launched the MCU. He launched the MCU with Iron Man. He's the dude.
He's now launched the Mandoverse. So he's launched, two, cinematic universes. You'd think he'd want even a directing duo combination, if nothing else, but to have everybody else get a film and John not, that's a little bizarre.
You're giving a film to the woman who did the Ms. Marvel show, 2 episodes. And no disrespect to her, she's probably a fantastic woman and very talented.
Yes.
But you give the movie to her. Meanwhile, you got Favreau here, like you said, Jay. He launched the entire MCU. He's made incredible movies. He's got a huge history. He's already been very successful in this space with Mandalorian. Nah, we'll pass on that.
Crazy.
It's just bizarre.
Now here's the thing. Here's the thing. This is, Alia brings up. Alia says here. Give me one moment. Alias here says, excellent point, Jay. John may be having convos on the side with Iger against KK, might even be spying on her for Iger at Celebration. That might be why he isn't involved with the Filoni movie, because he'll replace KK. It's interesting. And from KK's position, from Kathy's position, she knows Favreau's on the short list. If she gets booted, he's definitely on the short list. Probably contender number 1 for that spot. So maybe that's also why she's playing freaking games, because she doesn't want to give him any win other than, you can't take him out of Mando now, but she doesn't want to add one more thing and give him even more cachet, right?
Yep. And maybe that's why she announces the Mangold film, because she's like, he's on my short list. I got him on my side. I mean, these are the kind of politics that are played. This is wild speculation. We have no insiders. We're just looking at the scenario and going. And we do have reports coming out of Lucasfilm from other situations, some of which are more believable than others. But it's all speculation. But the problem still exists regardless of what it is that's actually happening. Right. The problem is very apparent to anybody watching these things. So it's not like hey, everything is fine. And there's for example, when I used to live in LA, I used to listen to I was not a Lakers fan, but LA radio was enamored with the Lakers. It was nonstop Lakers talk. The Lakers were doing bad. It was all about management and how management sucked. The Lakers were and how the players were mad at each other. The Lakers were doing well. It was all about how great LA is and how we're going to beat everybody else. So where are we with in that analogy, where are we with Lucasfilm? Well, we're not on they're just winning everything. We're not in that space. And so that just makes this, it makes this very awkward to watch as a fan, because you're like, how do I not think about what's going on behind the scenes? Because what you're presenting to me is so awkward. How do I not interpret? Maybe Favreau just is jet lagged, right? But how do I not interpret? They're not giving him a movie. We know that there's problems going on behind the scenes. We know he's on the short list. How can we not interpret that as like, when he looks this way, it looks like he's not having, like Aaliyah said, he's not having fun. It doesn't look like he's having fun.
No, it
One
doesn't.
One of the guys not there, by the way, this whole celebration. Pedro Pascal still has not made an appearance.
Right.
After what? Maybe doing press for season 2, right? I mean, we haven't seen him anywhere near any of this stuff. I understand he's in demand. He's got a lot on his plate right now, but it's kind of weird how he's omitted once again.
Well, he's, like you said, in demand, so he's got options big time.
Oh, sure.
Number one. And number two, if the rumors are true that, and I believe they are, that he had issues with Disney or Lucasfilm, and he stormed off the set in season 2. Well, look, if you're Pedro, right? You're like, I'm high in demand, and I'm having all this drama on set. What's keeping me here?
Well, that's what I'm saying. To Jay's point, right? It's like it could be those things, right? But when you have the rumors that stuff is going on, and then you might be seeing the manifestation of that by his non-appearance, by John's disinterest, all that. It's just like things are, it's a rocky foundation. Let's put it that way.
Now I know Jay, you have a heart out in a little bit, so let's dive into that Ahsoka trailer a little bit before you head out.
Yeah,
I think that'd be kind of fun.
Okay.
And we obviously can't play it, but we're gonna kind of do, some stills here and there. But I'll start with you, Jay. Overall, your thoughts on the Ahsoka trailer?
Absolutely amazing. I try not to judge a show by its trailer, but like this trailer has everything that you want to see from the Ahsoka show in it. Right. The way, like, first of all, Rosario, like her training for how she was going to be athletically move with the sabers is phenomenal. Like, it looks like a stunt person. And the way that they introduced Thrawn to us, which I was a little bit surprised by, to be honest with you, is amazing. The way that they're bringing in Rebels characters. I'm not even a big Rebels fan. I didn't watch the whole show, but seeing them is like, that's pretty cool to be able to see them. Yeah. And then I don't know if you have a shot of them, Dre, but is it Ron Stevenson or Ray Stevenson? I can't remember what it is.
I got you. Let me see if I can
this dude as a dark Jedi all day long, please. Oh, yeah. This looks phenomenal. So I was really stoked on this trailer. I didn't see any reason to I didn't see any red flags with it either. It looked like it was done really well. It is clearly Filoni's baby, so he's going to be extra careful with it. Yeah, there he is. I mean, this guy.
Cool. He even talked about it. He's just like, thought I was going to play maybe my old character back. I believe it was Rebels, right? Gas Sarkson or whatever. Thought I was going to play my, a vocalized character. But now it's like, no. We got something bigger for you. And it's, or Gar Saxon, I believe. This looks absolutely phenomenal. This looks really, really cool. I mean, this is like you said, Jay, this all day. You see him squaring off with Ahsoka. I don't know what this is all about, but I'm like absolutely interested. Go ahead.
I was just say real quick, Filoni was interviewed and said there is significance to these sabers being orange.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
That's fascinating.
They look like no sabers we've ever seen before.
Right.
Usually when you see a lightsaber, it has a distinctive white core to it, and then a color. This is something very, very different. Different kind of lightsabers means a different kind of faction, usually. But yeah, her stunt work is really, really great. Rosario Dawson as Ahsoka, really, really strong. Seeing Rebels characters actually translate into real life is kind of cool for fans who actually know what they're looking at. But I think they will be integrated in a very tasteful way. So that'll be kind of neat to see how they kind of do that. But we heard really great rumors coming out of, the various sources, right, for Ahsoka, and you can kind of see it. I think it showed up on film. I mean, this stuff looks absolutely awesome. The tone is perfect. I don't know. I mean, I was blown away by this trailer. I really was.
Yeah, no, and so was I. It looked really, really dope. I mean, and this is the thing. This is Filoni's baby. I mean, Filoni takes great care with Ahsoka, and you can tell a lot of love was poured into this. I mean, every shot of this show looks absolutely incredible. I think it's gonna be fantastic. And look, if Filoni, like, this is the thing that makes me really excited about his movie, is that he puts it all into this stuff. So, what's his movie gonna look like? I think that's interesting. I don't know.
By the way, if they give us a flashback scene where we get to see a younger version of Ahsoka, maybe not played by Rosario Dawson, and Hayden Christensen shows up. Oh my gosh, dude. It's going to bring the house down. That'll be amazing.
It's going to be wild. It's going to be wild. You just blew my mind there, Jay. Ooh, we got some armor. See that?
Yeah.
Cool.
Right,
it's got very much of a samurai type style too to it with that side plate there. That's cool.
I mean, this trailer has everything. She's dope as fuck. I don't know who she is, but she looks sick as hell. We even had a hallway scene, right? Star Wars hallway scenes are like notoriously badass. We even had a hallway scene in this. We got some great space battles or whatever, dogfights. It just looks really, really, really cool. The way it's shot looks dope. Love this stuff, man.
Cat.
Yeah.
Got Sabine Wren in there. Oh my god. I mean, it's got it all. Like, it really does have it all. I don't understand. I understand it's got a lot of member berries for the critics out there, but I think they're included in tasteful ways that kind of get you excited for the series, and there's an overarching story with Thrawn and everything like that.
Right.
If you know the stories of Rebels or maybe Heir to the Empire or something like that, it's kind of a big deal. I think it actually was done pretty well.
Yeah. And with the member berry stuff, a couple things, like when you're dealing with something like this that's connected to a lot of stuff in the existing universe,
right?
You're gonna need it to connect everything, right? Yep. It's all about execution for me, though. Like, if it feels organic, I'm all about it.
Yep.
If it feels like member berries, okay, that's when I got the issue.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Alia,
it was
says
a little
here,
bit. Oh, go for it. No.
Oh, I was just saying, real quick. Alia says here, some are theorizing she has Canon Jarrus' saber now. Blood orange. I think the orange implies they're not completely evil, just corrupted. Haha. Go ahead, Jay. I'm sorry.
Could be more of a gray Jedi or something along those lines. Maybe not Sith, but I think that it was a little bit of a bummer that they revealed who was playing Thrawn. Because the days after this trailer showed, I think it was Sunday. I think it was yesterday. They revealed who the actor is who's playing Thrawn. And I thought that was a weird choice because it kind of felt to me like, well, he's there. We're hyped on that. Just wait to give us, play it out to not tell us who's actually in that role. That was a weird choice, but.
And that was Lars Mikkelsen, I believe his name
is. Lars Mikkelsen, yeah. They're hiring all the Mikkelsens.
Yeah, right. Exactly. There he is.
There he is.
There he is.
It was a little bit weird. I mean, I guess it's to show that if you like his performances in Rebels, like you like him now, because Thrawn is kind of an interesting character in that you kind of have to nail it. You kind of have to get it right. Yeah. And I think they want that assurance out there for fans. But I do agree with you. Maybe suspense would have been better, for sure. So you can definitely look at it both ways.
Can you see how Filoni's handling this too?
The
lead character is female. There's this character who's female, who's clearly like a counterpart to Ahsoka.
Sure.
Yes, there are still like the white guys, like Ray Stevenson and the dude they just showed, the Lars Mikkelsen, even though he's playing an alien. But you don't hear any politicization of that.
No,
there's no those are just we love the character. You don't need to throw it in our faces that's the case. Just that's cool, man. No problems. Awesome.
It's a heavy female cast. I mean, you have Sabine, you have Ahsoka, you have
the Dark Jedi with the blonde.
You have Hera. Yeah,
Yeah,
Dark
yeah,
Jedi.
Hera.
So it's like it's a female, very heavy cast, but it all kind of feels natural. It all kind of like
Yep,
totally get it. Like it makes sense that these characters would be in this kind of place or whatever. Lothal, obviously. But yeah, there's no politicization to it. It's just great storytelling first and foremost. And
yeah, exactly.
If these women do thrive, they thrive within this story, within this series.
Yeah, it's kind of like the show me, don't tell me thing. Like for example, you right?
Yeah.
Like you have Eminem, right? Who he's badass. He isn't really like he kind of shows you that he's badass. Where as opposed to like the Pretty Fly for a White Guy music video. I don't remember that. That's kind of like telling you, right? Oh, I'm gangster, right? That's telling you. And Eminem is like, no, I'm just going to show you. Yeah. That's kind of how if you do it in an organic way, people won't care. But if you're just kind of right, if you're just kind of pushing it and you're like telling people, that's when it gets annoying.
Yeah, we should have representation, and you don't need to market your projects as if you are virtue signaling that it's better because of that. Just do it. Just do it. That's what we want.
Right. Well, and we see a little bit of that from the Acolyte stuff, which is unfortunate. Yes. Where it's like, oh, we're going to have this super diverse cast, all this kind of stuff. And it's like, no.
You don't need it.
Just let the story play out. Just let it play out. Just, highlight these characters and move on. Yeah. So it is interesting, the different styles, even within Lucasfilm, which is interesting. But do we want to go over, just with Jay's remaining time, do we want to go over Indiana Jones 5?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Let's do Indy 5 before we duck out. Absolutely.
Okay, cool. This one kind of had the opposite reaction to myself personally. Can't play it. This one, I don't know. Now, they do make kind of a thing here. The world around Indy has changed around him. And I think James Mangold has said this before, like the 60s, it plays a particular part in this story. Which is interesting. I always found Indy kind of a guy outside of time a little bit, just kind of a guy that's like, I'm gonna be in Africa doing, looking through some temple, or India or something like that. It's interesting how, as Mangold is implying, that this will have a profound effect on him, almost like a Steve Rogers almost in a way, which is, I thought it was a fascinating route to go. And one of the things they're showing here is obviously the space race is occurring, and everybody's kind of fixated on that.
But didn't they? I mean, I haven't seen the original Indiana Jones movies in years, but they did kind of dabble into like what was going on at the time with the Germans. I don't want to say it on YouTube and stuff like that. Yeah. So it wasn't totally void of that back then.
No. Well, absolutely, yeah. The war obviously had a profound impact, but like I guess there's a way to do that, and wrong way to do that. The kind of obviously culture have been changed from the war. I'm not saying that it wouldn't have, but like 1960s iconography, that kind of culture impacting this whole thing gets me a little worried. And they have his retirement going on here, which is. Now you're highlighting his age. I don't know if this was the right route to go. We know how old he is. We don't have to be told. It's just a very kind of interesting way to go about it.
I'm torn on that. I'm torn on that because I think that you can't. Okay, like you don't want to beat people over the head with "I'm an old man." At the same time, though, you don't want to like pretend it's not a thing because it is a thing. He's 80 years old, and if he just pretended to be like 35-year-old Indy, but he's clearly not anymore, I think that would be kind of jarring too, right? I don't know.
I do think Dre's point is a really good one, is that the Indiana Jones films do feel like, so something existed in the 30s and 40s that really does not exist anymore. It barely existed in the 60s, and it for sure does not in the 2020s. And that is, there were places, this is the way I've always said this before, there were places in the world that most of the world had no clue existed, and therefore you could tell a fantasy story that existed in our world because we would never have seen those worlds, right?
Yeah.
Nowadays, the way I like to describe it is like you probably have someone vlogging from somewhere in the world you want to see, like
That's true.
tomorrow. You know what I mean? Like it's just like so it takes away the mystery of the world. The mystery of the world is sort of gone, right? And so it's hard to work in the supernatural that way because it's kind of like, well, would I feel like I could go to New York and see the supernatural? Like probably not. Or do I feel like I go to Papua New Guinea and see the supernatural? Like probably not. There's probably a vlogger who's out there. But to OG's point, so I think you're right on that, Dre. To OG's point, you can't set Indy earlier unless you're going to do the entire thing as a age reduction technology. Yeah. Right. And so therefore you're faced with, we've got an old guy who sort of uncovered the secrets of the world, but there are much fewer secrets now. And I think that's what you have to play with, and that is insanely challenging because on the one hand you go, it's not really Indiana Jones, but here's Harrison Ford as Indiana Jones, and that's really difficult to come to terms with for sure.
Yeah, and I think they're handling, and this is, I mean, the technology here to de-age him is absolutely beautiful. Hopefully it looks like this throughout the whole movie, but I think this was a smart, and a lot of fans, you hear a lot of rumors and stuff, and a lot of fans don't like the idea of time travel, which is heavily implied here. I actually do, because I think this is the best way that you kind of get the Indy that we all fell in love with in the original films in the new movie. So you're getting a little bit of everything, right? You're getting the old man Indy, like, oh, I'm too old for this shit, right? That guy. But then you're also getting sprinkled in the Indy that we love from the old movies. So it's a good kind of mix of like kind of getting everything. Sure. You're not just stuck with old man Indy. You're getting the younger Indy too. And I think that time travel device, I think that's smart for this movie in a lot of ways. Now, see how it. Time
to grow up. That's it, right? That's totally it, right?
My roadcaster is trying to tell me something. No, but
it's time to grow up, Indy. Jay's right, though. I mean, even with that point, OG, these things are like really challenging to pull off. You know, I think you can do the time traveling thing, but it's got to be done effectively and smart in the right way. We've seen a lot of franchises get, skewed with that. Obviously, I think Terminator's the most, the biggest example of that. But we've seen others kind of dabble in this realm, and it can go south really, really quickly. So that's going to be an interesting aspect here. We get our first looks at. Oh, go ahead.
Oh, you go ahead. I was going to comment on the time travel, but go ahead.
No, comment on the time travel because I was going to comment on Phoebe Waller-Bridge.
That's the controversial part of our video.
We're getting there.
But I think that with the time travel, this is my guess about what's happening. My guess of the story set up based on what we've seen is that there's someone who likes the evil German party who realizes that the evil German party no longer exists and has power in the world, who wants to go back and be able to change that. The thing that it looks like with this particular time travel, and I hope that this is the case, is that it looks like the consciousness of the person who holds the dial is what goes back in time, not the old Indy goes back to see the young Indy, because that would be really, really messy. So what I'm hoping is that Indy basically, by turning the dial of destiny, can revert back to himself in his younger brain and be younger. That's what it seems like is happening. We're not seeing Harrison Ford old and young in the same same space. Can it work? Sure. As Dre is astutely pointing out, is it dangerous territory? Yeah, it is. Like, it's very difficult.
Doesn't that restrict how far you can actually go back to with the dial?
It does. Yeah.
That's an interesting thing to kind of think about. If in fact they're going in that direction, which I think they are. I think that's how they're gonna have their cake and eat it too. You're gonna have maybe a flashback scene, what actually happened. Dial of Destiny takes you back to that time period, how you can actually change that and so forth. It's gonna be really, really interesting. Indiana Jones 5 is gonna be a big hit film. I mean, maybe it has to be. We're talking about a $350 million project right now. Like we've gone over, you got to make a lot of money. For example, right? So, John Wick 4. It is now at around, I think, $300 million at the box office right now. Like, that's a bona fide win, no matter how you slice it, because that was a $100 million production budget. probably spent like 100 or so million on advertisement right there. 50% box office goes to, studio or whatever. That's going to be a win, no question right there. But if Indy 5 had to, did the same, that would be really bad. Really, really, really bad, just because of how expensive it actually is. That's just how it goes.
Yeah, we've got a clip coming out where we predicted what we were going to make on it. But I'm sitting at 1.2 billion. So I agree with Kevin. I think it's going to be huge. I'm positive about this film. I think Dre, you were the lowest, and then OG, you were somewhere in the middle.
Yeah. I was like just a little bit over. I think a little bit over a Billy. I think if it's a good movie though, like I think if this movie's riddled with. See, here's the issue too, and this is the elephant in the room. There's going to be a contingent of people that are going to kind of hate on this movie no matter what, because it's Kathleen Kennedy still.
Yeah.
And kind of put a narrative out there that the movie is not, regardless of whether it's good or not, there's going to be that narrative out there. And that's the thing, is that does influence, I think, right?
Yeah.
I think there is some influence in that. A lot of people blow that off, but I don't think that's something to really blow off. I think that when you have a lot of stuff out there, Indy sucks, I think people kind of even subconsciously kind of take that in.
Yeah, I think I do.
Right? It's so I don't know.
I think a lot of people are impacted the other way too. Like for example, John Wick 4, we heard it was like really, really good, and then we started seeing people going in just because it was like, ooh, I heard this was really good. Heard a little bit of that from Mario, which is interesting. Kevin Davis, Super Mario Brothers not going to make $1 billion. I don't know where you're getting that information from. It hasn't even opened some of its biggest territories, so I'm pretty sure it will. But it's interesting, the financing on that film, because Uni's got to share 50% of its revenue with Nintendo. Whoops.
Yeah.
So we'll actually see how much that film ends up making for both parties.
Nintendo got a sweetheart deal out of that. I mean, I've never heard of something like that. 50%. I mean, that's Universal will just whatever you want, Nintendo, I'll give it to you. It's pretty much. But but go ahead, Jay. I'm sorry.
Oh no, I was just gonna. No, you go ahead. You were on a train. I was gonna interrupt that train, so you go. You go for it.
Oh no, I was just say to kind of come back to what we were saying, Jay. Yeah, I think it's. I'm kind of close to where you're at with it, like a little over a Billy, close to 1.2. As long as it's a good movie, as long as there's nothing super egregious in here that fans are like, oh my god, this is terrible. I think it's going to do very, very well. And I am, like you, Jay, a very big Mangold fan. I trust him immensely. Ford v Ferrari was one of my favorite movies from him. Absolutely incredible storytelling there. I don't even like racing. I don't care at all about racing, and I was completely entranced by that movie the entire time. Yeah. He's a great filmmaker. I'm not so much worried about him. I'm worried about Kennedy meddling and getting all involved. That's what I'm worried about more than anything. But if Mangold can do Mangold things, this movie's gonna crush.
Yeah.
I don't know. You got Kathleen Kennedy on one side, and you have Phoebe Waller-Bridge on the other. So that's what concerns me immensely. It's interesting. Did they say that Indy was a mercenary? That's interesting. I didn't quite know that. That's fascinating. Wow. I think this brings us to like the tone of this one and what they're trying to convey to the actual audience themselves. Now, the Rolling Stones simply with the Devil song. It's like, okay, I get it. That's what a lot of the trailers are doing nowadays. They're playing pop songs in there to kind of get you hooked or whatever. Obviously, we know that the time period is gonna have an impact. So feels somewhat appropriate. Okay, whatever. Is it indie? I don't think so, but I'll let it slide. Whatever. I kind of wanted a swashbuckling adventure, but, c'est la vie. And then you hear the Symphony of the Devil kind of, the hoot, hoot, that part of it kind of intermixed with the actual score itself. And that was just like, what are we doing here? Like, this is now I'm not exactly in on this. This is really, really weird now. And then we get that famous line from Phoebe Waller-Bridge, which... Now it's like, this is why I was worried. I stole it, then you stole it, then they stole it, or whatever, and then I stole it. It's called capitalism. It's like, what are they? What? Like, how? Why? Why would you do that? Look, in the context of a 2.5 hour film, 2 hour film, let's slide. I'm sure in context, it might play better than when it's actually being perceived. But this is like, what, a minute trailer, if that? Why would you include that in your trailer that you're trying to showcase for your movie.
Right.
Totally bizarre, totally off choice, and it just ruined the tone for me. I think what they were trying to convey via this trailer.
Yeah, absolutely. And go ahead, Jay, because Jay has a hard out, so he's going to be leaving us. But Jay, any final thoughts before you take
final
off?
Thoughts, and then I'll be out. Fantastic time hanging out with you guys. Thanks for having me on. Really fun.
Thank you.
I do think that joke is awkward. The capitalism joke is awkward, particularly given the fact that capitalism, in large part the West and democracy, which usually has capitalism as its financial structure, just won World War II about a decade earlier, 2 decades earlier. And the 60s were one of the most positive capitalism times that you could have seen. We were in a Cold War with the Soviet Union already. They were the evil that were communists, and then we had capitalism here in the States, and capitalism was building things like the interstates that we have today. It was building the Disneyland. It was building the space race. Was our space race was built off. Even though it was a government entity, it was still like this idea that we were positive and heading in a direction that was really, really positive. So I hope that joke plays as like awkward, and that's not like a subtle like message. Kathleen Kennedy talking about messages.
Right.
I don't know. I hope it's not that. So we'll see. Look, do I love the fourth film, Crystal Skull? No, I think it's just a very okay, meh film. Do I absolutely love the 3 films, and it's my favorite trilogy of all time, and it's my favorite franchise of all time? Yes, absolutely. I love it. I've read most of the novels, almost all the novels, the comics. I love Indiana Jones. Because of that, and because of Mangold, I am insanely positive about this film. 1.2 billion might be overshooting it, but to Dre's point, they need to get up into that range for it to actually make money, because of how much they spent. Sometimes we don't hear production budgets, and it's like, did it make money? Did it not? Well, we know what the budget was, and like Dre's saying, they're marketing it already, so we know. But if they're going to show it at Cannes, they're going to show it at Sundance. Look, I'm a white pill on Indiana Jones, so I hope it's awesome. But we'll see. We'll see what it comes down to. I'm looking forward to you guys hearing your reaction, especially to the Acolyte stuff. And if you watch that interview, it is so cringe. I'm looking forward to seeing what you guys think of that. But in the meantime, you can follow me on Twitter. You can hear my thoughts about some more of this stuff down here. And then we're going to record. I don't know if you guys want to record Thursday or Friday, so hit me up about when you want to record for Mandalorian, and we will be back at it talking about the next episode of Mandalorian. We've got some cool guests coming up that want to come on, and we'll be back. So thanks for having me, guys. Enjoy the rest of your conversation. It's been an absolute pleasure. Everybody in the chat, love you guys. Take it easy. I'll see you guys later. Bye.
See you there, Jay.
Yes.
Yes. Thank you. All right. Always awesome. Always awesome having Mr. Jay Shear. Oh yeah, thank you for joining, Jay. Woohoo! Yes. All right, so let's continue with our Indiana Jones conversation. I think.
Yeah.
I think that was interesting. Okay, so let's go. So now you had issues with the capitalism remark. Now it's interesting. Jay brought up a great point here with this capitalism joke. Is that maybe in a film set in the 2020s, right?
Yeah.
That kind of joke would feel appropriate, because there is a little bit of like this thing where people are kind of like, I don't know, capitalism, is it working for us, kind of thing. Okay, I get that. But he makes a great point. This isn't 2020 though. This is the 1960s, where it's a different era. And is that going to necessarily, it's a modern joke set in the 60s.
There was definitely an emerging countercultural movement happening right now, like for sure, but that wasn't super mainstream, I don't think. Obviously the Vietnam War was going on at that point. People had very much distrust in the government at this point. It's interesting, if you look at the polling, trust in government in the 1950s, 1940s was plus 95%. By about this time period, it would have been below 30%. It's very interesting to see that cap off there. You know, obviously JFK assassination, Vietnam War, all
Right.
all the kind of scandals that were actually taking place. It's alarming. But I don't think anybody said that capitalism was the bad entity in all of
Right.
that. To say that at that time would have been very faux pas. That would have made you a commie, basically, right?
Right.
So that's a weird thing. Just to include it, maybe in context it actually works out. But again, this is a couple-minute trailer right here. What is the tone that you want to have actually out there? I just think it missed the mark, at least for me there, and took me out of it completely.
Yeah, it's interesting, and it was weird, and unfortunately, we can't play it here. But when they say that those lines, it's a weird jump cut of all three lines. There's three lines.
Yeah.
And it's a weird jump cut of all three. And I'm wondering if it's like, if that's a scene where, you take from me, I take from you, that's capitalism. Is that one scene, or is it lines cut from different parts of the movie and put together to make a joke for the trailer?
Right. And that's what I mean. I mean, it's just it in context could play very differently, right? It could really work. But again, I mean, this is promotional product that you are assembling in order to promote this film, and it's just done. It's not executed, I think, as we would maybe have imagined. Now, this kind of stuff right here, when they're in this temple and stuff like that, they're going through, or they look like they're in someplace in almost like Morocco or something. Like this stuff is really good. I think it really plays quite well and establishes a nice tone for this actual film. It's just some of the other stuff, the modern cityscape, New York City setting or whatever. It's a little off, and it just some of the stuff, the music choice. It's just I don't know what tone they were quite going for here. I don't think it quite worked as well as they imagined. Interestingly enough, they have disabled likes and dislikes on it. Disabled by owner, you see that? So that's interesting.
That is, but that kind of goes to there's definitely the culture war is definitely raging right now, and I don't take a lot of that stuff seriously, the likes and dislikes, because there are campaigns from both sides of this war actively going out and kind of trying to make their point, basically, right?
I guess so.
I think that's a big thing here, and I just think that, I don't know.
There's a shot too, this shot right here, where he's leaping into the car here. Maybe I can play like a frame of it. It looks really awkward if you play it back in live time. It looks really strange. If anybody has that trailer, go back and go to this moment right here. It just looks. I don't think the effects are also like at a pristine point right now. The VFX work is a little shaky, which is quite concerning because it's April and this comes out in June. Did we
June 30, I believe.
July, something like that.
I'm not sure, but a couple months, basically.
Couple months, right? 143. Go back and see that. It just looks awkward. So. It's just some VFX work looks really good. Others don't. The tone is a little bit, I don't know where they're quite going. Tracker website, let's see. Alia, what do you got for us? The Tracker website I shared doesn't yet have data for after the trailer. It's not yet known if the trailer hurt interest in the film. I don't think it necessarily hurt it, but I don't think it won a lot of people over to it.
That's a great way of putting it, Dre. Yeah, I think the trailer was kind of what the other ones were, where it's like, okay, it's Indiana Jones, cool, but it's nothing that's like, oh man, yeah. I haven't seen that yet, and the biggest issue that I'm having with a lot of these trailers is that they're very dialogue heavy sort of trailers, right? With Indiana Jones, I want more adventure. Like, I want to see more of this cool temple stuff, more archaeology, more adventure, more adventuring, right? And I see a lot of like these scenes in like these libraries and these rooms, and it's just like, come on, it's Indiana Jones.
Yeah.
Let's see some action. And there is some in here. I'm not saying there's not, but I just want to see more Indiana Jonesy kind of stuff and less like a bunch of people talking around a table. And that's my biggest issue with this movie, is that kind of stuff. Now, the good part about it is this stuff, but also I think that the deep fake stuff That the guy they hired to do this stuff for Lucasfilm is absolutely incredible. He crushed it with Luke Skywalker in the Book of Boba. He's doing this too for Indy. Really, really great effect. I'm digging the deep fake stuff for sure. It really is kind of like the star of all this footage so far for me. I've been really impressed with that.
Yeah, some of the stuff looks actually really, really good. Some of the effects work looks great. Like I said, it's just inconsistent, right? Like when they're like hopping out of that plane, actually looks pretty good.
Yeah.
It looks like, ooh, that's something right there. Like I said, more temple stuff, more swashbuckling. Just don't take itself too seriously. The indie films never did. So it'll be interesting to see. Also, too, very interesting about this, for example, they changed the logo. So if you see, nope, thank you. If you see right here, this is the poster that actually revealed with it. And you can see it's slightly changed. It's got a more kind of a modern typeface to it. They kind of split it up, Indiana and Jones on separate lines right there. That's very different than necessarily how it's been portrayed in the past. For example, somebody put up a mock poster. You can see the kind of illustration that you have right here. It's very, very different. I don't know why they did that.
Well, it's weird to me because they did like I forgot the gentleman's name who does these posters, but he's an absolute legend.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I know what you're talking about.
Right. And I don't want to get his name wrong, but it's funny because they lean into the nostalgia by making the poster look like he did it, right? But then they kind of shit the bed with the logo. It's like, if you're gonna do this, like leaning into like the style of the old movies, then lean into it 100%. Don't do it and then have the logo modern. Like, come on, Lucasfilm. Like, this is the kind of stuff that really frustrates me. Is like, God, you're like 95% there, and you got to do the logo now modern. Like, why? You know, I don't understand it. And I hope that was just like a one-time thing. Hopefully, when the posters hit the public, when closer to the movie, hopefully we see this, because it was like this initially with all the promo stuff. The other trailers, this was the logo they had.
Really?
And now, yes. Go back. If you want to type on YouTube, go to the teaser that we originally got. Let's check it out.
Okay. All right.
Because maybe put teaser because I don't think it was a full.
Right.
A full one back then. And let's see here.
Yeah. Right. Okay. This one right here, 4 months ago.
Okay, now go to the very end.
Okay. Let's see. I'm gonna have to play it a little bit here.
Yeah, go to.
Maybe too far.
There it is.
Yeah.
See?
Yeah.
It was the old school.
Wow.
And now they changed it. Like, why? Of all the things, you have the most iconic. I don't want to call it logo. What, typography, I guess you call it? You have the most iconic typography that's ever graced the planet, basically, right? But this and the Star Wars one, why would you mess with something that's like perfection? I don't understand that.
40 years established too, by the way. I mean, this was the logo that they used in the 90s and all that, with the video games and so forth. Yeah, the attraction, the games, the comics, all that. They all use this because, I mean, you see it, exactly what you're supposed to be seeing right here. I believe a take on this was done with like the DuckTales logo or something like that, right? Because it was so iconic, everybody would try to copy it. I don't know.
It blows my mind, Ray. This logo is synonymous with adventure. That's why, like you said, that's why like DuckTales use it. That's why the old Islands of Adventure logo is very reminiscent of the Indiana Jones. Right, they've changed that. That's a whole other can of worms. but that's why they went with that kind of style. It's synonymous with adventure. You have something in at your disposal that's this is incredible, and you go, that's the thing we want to change. God.
Drew Struzan, I believe, was the original artist.
That's the gentleman.
Yeah, for the created all kinds of posters, including Shawshank Redemption, Blade Runner, all kinds of stuff, Mallrats, Indiana Jones. It's just amazing stuff, and they evoke his style in a pretty decent way. But I don't know, that was That was a weird way to go. Love Lo says if they wanted to modernize it, they could have just removed the shadow.
There you go. That's fine.
Yeah.
I mean, just do that. Something very simple, you know. But this is something you don't need to modernize. You know, I don't understand this. Like even it works. It still works to this day. Like, why are they trying to modernize something that totally works?
And this is just kind of the scary thing, you know. This is just kind of like if you're making these kind of brain dead decisions, just keep that stuff there. I mean, you know, it's just this is absolutely what you should be doing. What other decisions are they making behind the scenes? That's what concerns me.
Yeah.
So we'll see.
We'll see. Now we got some more Star Wars to cover.
Yes, we do. Should we get into the Vision stuff?
Yes. Oh my God, this is dope.
I know you were really passionate about this, and
incredible.
It does look pretty good here. Some of the stuff is So we're getting a mixture of animation styles this time around. Is that right?
Yeah. And last time we got a mixture as well. I mean, but the overall kind of for season 1 of Visions, it was very much anime styles, but they switched it up. Sometimes, like one of the shorts was kind of like a black and white, kind of sketchy. One was very cutesy, like an Astro Boy kind of style, but they were all kind of like this overarching kind of Japanese style. This season doesn't look Japanese at all, but same kind of idea though. They're kind of taking different styles. Like this particular scene right here, they kind of have like a weird, almost hybrid of like CGI and like painted kind of style. There's a lot of CGI in these shots. There's even some like kind of like this.
See that katana there?
Oh,
as a lightsaber.
dope.
That's pretty dope, right?
That's dope. They even have like kind of like chicken run style, like stop motion claymation kind of style.
Right.
Just really, really cool art design here with all these various shorts. I mean, I love what they're doing with Star Wars Visions. Just really experimental kind of stuff. It's awesome, dude. This is incredible.
It's just taking this amazing sandbox, which is Star Wars, and just having people just go run with it, you know, stuff that's not canon, but that is, you know, that can free you creatively to really just take these things in wild directions, right? And I think this is really, really cool. Like I said, the animation styles, they're different, but they bring, I mean, look at this.
Hyper realistic and some really stylized.
Yeah, that's just something really unique. This is kind of your claymation or stop motion animation style right here. That's very, very interesting. I mean, I was impressed. I think every single lead here is female, which I thought was an interesting choice, especially since we had just gone off. You know, we had just seen a lot of female-centric content actually announced. Ahsoka, for example, the Rey movie, and so forth. It's like, oh, okay. All right, okay, well, we're going this direction. That's fine. It's just, you know, that it's going to be interesting to see how retailers play that with the, obviously, male-centric toys and so forth. That was a big demo for Star Wars. We'll see. Overall, though, I was pretty impressed with what I saw. I mean, honestly, this stuff is really, really cool, really, really out there. And just being that it's not canon creates a lot of, like I said, a lot of creativity that the artists can actually bring in here, which is the whole point, which is really cool.
Yeah, no, a lot of creative freedom here that you can do. Like, I mean, every still here is like, you can frame it. Yeah, you can frame it and put it on your wall. I mean, it's absolutely insane. Yeah, I was a huge fan of season 1. I will definitely be checking this out. And then Love Low here says, remember the Force is female.
That's kind of what I was getting at. Look, I don't want to sound like
Are you being toxic, Dre? Are you being a toxic
Well, I don't want to
fan?
sound like that. I'm not trying to. I'm really not. But it's just, it's like, you know, when you see project after project after project after project, you go, that's interesting. Just, you know, it's an interesting observation to make.
Yeah, no, it is. And it's all about execution. You know, at the end of the day, and it also depends on how they market it. You know, like we were talking about earlier with Ahsoka, it's a very female-centric kind of show. At least it seems like it, but they're not really like, you know, as long as you just kind of do it and don't like make that your selling point, I'm pretty much okay with it. You know.
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting. You know, they say representation matters, and I say, yeah, it does matter. In the reverse, it does matter as well. So we will see how that story develops. But I mean, look at that.
I'm telling you,
it looks insane,
dude. This is a YouTube video that's being paused, and you can literally print that and frame it on your wall. It's dope as shit, dude. It's dope as hell. This is awesome, man. And this is like this really cool kind of painted look, and it's, dude, this is incredible. Alia down here says a variety of animation studios from around the world, including Aardman, Chicken Run. Okay, that's why it looks like Chicken Run, and Cartoon Salon, which is the Wolf Wakers, among others. Incredible.
I think they
Alia.
said 9 from 9 different world-renowned studios, which is absolutely fantastic. I mean, this is really cool, and it's the stuff that we all want to see in the films.
well, and the cool, absolutely. And the cool thing about doing this, right, is that it gives Lucasfilm an idea of what works and what doesn't in animation. Right. So this can kind of be information data, as Bob Chapek would like to say, data for like a Dave Filoni who does all the animation for Lucasfilm. Mm-hmm. Dave can look at this and go, okay, so this animation style really worked well for Star Wars Visions. Let's go ahead and utilize that in the next show. It allows them to experiment and see what works and what doesn't for shows going forward that will be canon, right? So I think that's pretty cool. It allows them to kind of experiment and test things out for future stuff.
I'd say live action as well. I mean, if some of these ideas actually work out and could be implemented in a way that's consistent with the kind of canon story, bring some of that stuff over. It's a really great showcase of just creativity in this world that we all know and love, without any of the repercussions that come along with going out there, right? So I do enjoy that part of the process. Overall, though, really strong. And I was intrigued from the initial Star Wars Visions stuff, and this looks like it's going to be really cool. I haven't actually delved into it much, though. I know you swear by the first season. I just haven't done it yet. Really excited to now.
Yeah, well, the thing I love about Japanese and their approach to animation is that the Japanese look at animation much differently than Americans do. They see, and this is changing, to be fair. American audiences are definitely seeing animation more than just kid stuff compared to like in the 70s and 80s, right? It was like all about But Japan has always had this kind of like this respect for animation. Like they don't talk down to their audiences. They do a lot of adult-driven animation, and that's what I love about Japanese culture and how they kind of like approach animation. So when you see all these legendary anime studios, kind of their take on Star Wars in season 1, it's gonna blow you away, Dre. They do a lot. A lot of it is pretty heavy stuff, pretty adult-driven stuff, and cool. I love how they don't talk down to the audience. It's pretty dope, dude. I think you're gonna dig it. I think you're really gonna dig it.
Alia has the studios that are featured.
Awesome. Perfect.
So we can put that on screen right there. Have our audience at home read that. Pretty cool, but a bunch of different countries. Ireland, Japan, South Africa, Chile, South Korea, France. Interesting because the male lead in Acolyte is from South Korea, who you'll recognize him from Squid Games probably. But I didn't know that he didn't speak English at all.
Really?
And he had a translator. Yeah, he had a translator during his interview. And so I'm like,
how's that going to work?
Lead?
Yeah, that's interesting. How's that going to work in the show? Unless he speaks some kind of alien dialect and it's captions for him. Maybe they go around it that way. That's interesting, dude. Now, speaking of the Acolyte,
sure.
Should we dive into that?
Leslie Headland, the interview there. Oh boy. Okay, yeah. Let's do it right here because
All right.
Jay was like, "Man, this interview is cringe," and I gotta see it. I gotta see it, so we might as well do it live, right?
Yeah.
Now, some of the stuff coming out of the Acolyte and some of the other interviews actually sound pretty good. Leslie Headland, who I believe is the showrunner on this show, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Apparently not so much. So let's see her come out here. Can't play it obviously because of music.
Yeah.
But she makes a little strut right here. She's coming out.
Oh.
A little cringe. It's a little cringe. This is how we start.
Okay.
Oh boy, guys.
All right.
We are in for it here. Let's see. Bring it up slowly.
You know. Yeah.
Let's see what she has to say.
Talk about an entrance. That was a catwalk. That was fashion show worthy.
Yeah, I just try to treat everything as if we're on RuPaul's Drag Race. That's kind of like my.
Okay, pause it real quick.
Just.
Yep.
You know, this is interesting, okay? I feel like there's a disconnect here with what Bob Iger wants to do with the Walt Disney Company right now,
Yep.
and what Lucasfilm is trying to do here.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Bob Iger's coming out there, and he was very clear about it at that annual meeting. We understand audiences and parents have different comfort levels, and we're trying to depoliticize. We're trying to moderate our approach, right?
Bring it in just a little bit.
Bringing it in, right? And again, the Walt Disney Company is never going to be the Daily Wire, okay? It's always going to be a left-leaning thing because all of Hollywood is left-leaning, and they've been that way for decades. But at least they're kind of bringing it in from the extreme left that they have been in the past few years. They're moderating it from that and coming into the center a little bit, right? Okay, cool.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what Iger is saying, and I think that's the right move. Okay,
Right.
Totally. Every studio is doing that. Zazzy's doing that over at Warner too. Okay, and that's the right thing to do.
Correct.
But Lucasfilm seems to be like they're just partying like it's 2017 still. Like, hey, you know what? Like, I don't understand that, right? And it's like
When you're taking Disney's money and when you are developing something for a Disney platform, whether it be theatrical, Blu-ray, physical, streaming, whatever, there's a certain amount of responsibility that comes with that. And if they haven't learned now, they might learn pretty fast. But we'll see how well Acolyte will have done, because I'm sure this doesn't necessarily play well with executives right now, understanding that change is occurring as we speak.
And you open yourself up for people to like hate your show before you even premiere
exactly.
it. Like, why? Like, why are you setting yourself up for this? Like, why?
I mean, I think a lot of people were turned off over the Andor comments that were coming out right before that show actually launched. It was like, oh, this is a show all about Trump and all this kind of stuff. And it's like, why would you do that? Like, why evoke that name? Why say those things? You're just going to be turning off half your audience before the show's even been released. And it's really unfortunate.
Work the runway. Work the runway.
You worked that runway. I thought, what a tough act to follow. Jon Favreau just discovered our gatekeeper and was marveling at being on Navarro again. And then here you come. And you did it.
Here she
you
came.
did it. You understood the assignment. Leslie, so good to have you here.
Thank you for having me. Thank you all so much for being here. Thank you so much.
Now, I'm a big fan of The High Republic. I know you're a big fan of Star Wars The High Republic. But you're the first person to take a stab at bringing The High Republic to life in live action with your show, The Acolyte. What's that been like for you?
Well, it's so exciting. I mean, as somebody that grew up both with, obviously George's films and then the release of the special editions, like for a long period of time, I'm not going to age myself, but the extended universe and a lot.
Okay.
Expanded universe.
Yes. And we were talking about this pre-show, but I'll kind of repeat my overall thoughts on air right now.
Sure.
The way she lists all that out, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like Well, obviously George's original stuff and the special editions. Do you know any Star Wars fan? Honestly, real talk
never.
here. Real talk. Have you ever met a Star Wars fan that says, "Yeah, I've been a Star Wars fan. I remember growing up with the special editions." Have you ever heard a Star Wars fan reference it in that way before in your life?
No, never. They'll usually say, or I remember going, like, my first film was like a Star Wars film, and that really changed my mind, changed my perspective. Older people might say, I remember going to the prequels with my parents. They brought me, and it was just a mind-melting moment right there. I was so immersed into the world. Very rarely does anybody talk about the special editions, and look, I get it. That was,
I mean, it happened, but
the films were released in a kind of physical format that I think kids will remember, but they don't necessarily go to that as like their first thing. Like that's a weird thing.
It's almost like the only time I ever hear it referenced is like usually like a fan being mad that they happened.
Yes, yeah, exactly.
But no one ever goes, "Oh man, I grew up on those special editions." Like, well, who says this? It's weird.
I love your description of it. It's like somebody was looking at Wikipedia right before this interview and had that itemized list of all that stuff that came out, and it's like, oh, here we go. This is what I'll just reference to make myself look like a fan. Not very encouraging, but we'll go on.
It's like real quick. It's like me. Full disclosure, I'm not like a sports fan at all, right? Like I don't know who played in the Super Bowl. I don't pay attention to any of it, right? It's like OG coming out here going like, I love sports, man. Those Brooklyn Dodgers, huh?
Exactly. Oh, rough.
I'm not going to age myself, but the extended universe and a lot of that publishing was really the only Star Wars that I had. And so what I love about the High Republic is that it's kind of in the grand tradition of what Star Wars was for the fans for a really long time, which is, both these kind of high concept, beautifully rendered stories, but at the same time, pulpy action, and the kind of stuff that we always love and adore about Star Wars in the live action. So I wanted to get to have the opportunity to bring both of those things together was so exciting to me. So from a narrative standpoint, that was the case. But I have to also say, I really loved the challenge of marrying the aesthetics of what has already been designed for the High Republic and what the Jedi look like in the High Republic, and bridging that gap between who they are then and who they are when we meet them in The Phantom Menace. So that was also very exciting.
No, and this is the thing.
That was also very exciting. Just definitely got the Valley Girl right there.
Yeah, totally. Well, here's the thing, though. The High Republic, where it sits on the timeline, is a fascinating time, is a fascinating era. There's a lot you could do in this time period leading up to those prequel films, right?
Yeah.
There it is, High Republic.
High Republic,
right?
Right there, and then you had the Fall of the Jedi, which is basically the prequels.
Right. Okay, so there's a lot you can do here. Okay, so there's potential. And here's the thing. I will give the Acolyte a 100% chance, open mind. I will. I'll go into it. I'll watch it, and I'll give it an honest opinion. This thing, she might absolutely crush it. She might destroy. This thing might be a dope show. But big but here. I am very worried about this one. I've been hearing a lot of weird stuff surrounding the Acolyte. Cameron Pasha has been talking about this a lot. Hollywood Insider saying that this show is not even happening. It's kind of like and there's like lawsuits and stuff surrounding this show, and there's all kinds of weirdness going on. There's just so much weird stuff around this show. I'm just kind of like, okay, what is going on? How is this going to turn out? All right.
It does seem to be some trouble, right? With every single Lucasfilm production, it seems, outside of the Jon Favreau and Dave Filoni stuff,
right?
Which even they can't be fully insulated from it.
No.
Obviously, Rangers of the New Republic and all that. Always some drama, and it seems like this has a good amount of it. Now, the reports about this show not being a real show, that was an interesting theory for a little while, up until the point where Bob Iger said very affirmatively, I believe at the Morgan Stanley conference, this past time. He said, yeah, I've seen the Acolyte. I think it's great. Okay, so it's like, all right, so they have enough to show the CEO. CEO's actually remarking on it, talking about it.
Yeah.
This thing's going to happen, folks.
Yeah.
And now we see that they made quite a bit of it out at the studio panel.
Yeah.
For Star Wars Celebration, I think it's happening.
It's
You know,
happening.
the whole theory that it's not. But like
if
you
it
said,
doesn't-
though, it's okay.
And well, if it doesn't happen, Pasha's going to have the win of the century.
Yeah, that's for sure. That's for sure, right? That is
Wow.
Woo, that'll be big.
Go ahead, Dre. I'm sorry.
No, I was just gonna say that it's interesting the kind of drama behind the scenes with this film.
Yeah.
For this not film but series. I think it could still be pretty cool. I just don't trust the people creating it, especially this Leslie Headland right here.
Yeah.
Obviously, she has a notorious past or infamous past as an assistant working directly with Harvey Weinstein.
Oh.
That's
not good.
That's not good, and we might have more to that story in the coming days. But it's I don't know. I'm just not sure. When we talk about creatives who might not necessarily be as into the work as we would like them to be and are into some other things, maybe more, and how they bring that into their work, I think Leslie Headland might be a good example of this. But hey, we don't know. The show could end up really, really good.
I haven't seen any of her work, so I really have no reference point for her. She might be a brilliant creative, and I probably should check out. I think she did Russian Dolls. Maybe I should check it out and kind of get an idea for what she does. Because look, I'm going to give her a fair shake, but I'm with you. I'm very nervous. Alia here says, I was surprised the series was mentioned because there is a lawsuit. I thought it would be on the back burner for that reason alone. That's a great point, Alia, right?
Yeah.
You see stuff getting canceled at Lucasfilm for far lesser reasons.
For sure.
But this one has an active lawsuit. And it's
Maybe
like full steam ahead.
I know. I was kind of surprised about. Maybe they're too far into production. You know, it's just got to follow the natural development cycle or production cycle just because of those reasons. I'm not sure, but very interesting.
Awesome. Great answer. And this is your first Star Wars Celebration, and I believe yesterday you were part of the studio showcase and you got brought to stage by a Wookiee Jedi.
I did. I did get brought on stage by a character I created, Wookiee Jedi Master named Kelnaka, played by Jonas.
We all know and love.
What do you think, by the way, of that? The costume was a little bit strange. If you saw it.
I actually saw it. I didn't mind it too much personally. Yeah, but did they show it on here in this clip in particular, or do you have it on you? We could check that out.
Check it out.
Yeah,
because we don't have a lot to go on for this series. We've seen some behind the scenes production stuff. And
yeah,
that's really tough to judge by because we know that there's so much post now.
Yeah, let's check it out because I saw glimpses of it on my timeline and stuff like that, but I didn't really dive into it. And
let me see. Yeah, here we go. Got a little bit of it right here.
Okay. Let me see.
Okay. Kind of have the same reaction that I do to it.
Well,
right?
Yeah, it's not so much the Wookiee. The Wookiee's fine. It's the I think it's what he's wearing that looks a little cheap. Maybe. Am I tripping on that? Is that kind of where you're at? It's the outfit that looks kind of jarring, I guess.
It's really small for a Wookiee. Do you notice that? It's like out of scale.
Yeah. You're right about that. At first, I didn't notice it. I didn't even really, honestly, I saw him like on my timeline. Yeah. I didn't really pay too much attention to him. But now that I'm sitting here just kind of looking at it, the outfit is what makes it kind of weird.
It's a little jank. It's a little jank. Right?
Yeah, it doesn't look like super high quality, like costuming or something. I don't know.
I agree. Continue, Ford.
I couldn't pass up the idea of having a Wookiee Jedi in live action. I just as soon as it was established in the High Republic that was a thing that could happen, I was like, get it in here. Let's go. Action.
Yes, please.
It's been kind of fans have been.
We
wanting
love
that for quite
Wookiees.
some
We
time,
love
so
Jedi. You know
that's-
we're gonna love a Wookiee Jedi.
Seems kind of like inevitable, honestly, but yes, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Now,
But wait,
I know
Dre, real
something
quick.
about the Star Wars.
We didn't see, because the prequels had like Jedis all over the place. We never
Yeah.
saw, even in the background, a Jedi Wookiee in any of those prequel movies.
That's interesting.
Because
So we saw a very young Wookiee, like a youngling version of a Wookiee going through like the ceremonies to like build your own lightsaber, right? In the Clone Wars.
Right.
It's about the closest we've gotten, I think. And then there might have been some references to that in animation, but we've not seen it in the live action. So
That's interesting.
Yeah.
I'm surprised by that. Wow. Okay.
Yeah. It's something we want. I think fans have wanted for a while. So that obvious choice. And if you're working in this kind of timeline, might as well.
Yeah.
Timeline. The High Republic is so far removed from most of the Star Wars we know. I know you talked about that connective tissue of the design elements evolving from where your story is to when we get to the Phantom Menace. But what's different about this era that will surprise fans who maybe haven't discovered the High Republic yet? Maybe they aren't into the books and comics just yet. Maybe this is their first step into
If
that
this
larger
were your
world.
first step, and I hope, if it were, I hope that I do the fans proud, because it is such a beautiful, rich, gorgeous world that people should be investing into as fans, especially again, as a fan myself that grew up with a lot of publishing as opposed to media, because we just didn't have any media the way that we do now. I hope that if you watch The Acolyte, it does inspire you to get further into the High Republic, and the publishing phase 1 was incredible. I think it was just astonishing.
them
I
saying
think
that
that one of the
didn't
things
sell well?
that would be helpful to kind of put in perspective is that we're at the end of that era and moving more into George's era of the Phantom Menace. So my question became, as a fan, when I initially pitched the show to Kathleen, which was an original idea with new characters and not connecting it to Skywalker Saga or any of the existing characters in the High Republic, what I wanted to introduce the fans to the concept too was
After you told her what you had to say, right?
Right.
Is that how we're doing it?
Yeah.
how do you reconcile the Jedi at the height of their power, the galaxy at the height of this age of enlightenment and peace, and who George says they become at the top of the Phantom Menace. And to me, that meant, why don't you tell a story about Star Wars from the perspective of the villains, of the bad guys? And if those bad guys are outnumbered at this point, then that means that you get this opportunity to see how the Jedi very subtly go from who they were in the High Republic and the Old Republic, and who they became by the time you're watching episodes 1, 2, and 3.
Okay, real quick. Now, honestly, that's a dope concept.
That's an interesting concept. Yeah.
That's a really cool concept here. I mean, and that's the thing that has me really kind of torn on this, is because I like where she's going with it conceptually. But how's that execution, though?
Yeah.
That's what worries me.
Is Leslie Headland the one that has compared it to Frozen meets Kill Bill?
That is correct, and that is a wild combination. Is that going to work? It's like, I don't know, man. I don't know.
I think if it's Frozen and it's just like sisters, all right. But if you have somebody struggling with their powers,
that's cool.
That would be a dope concept for, let's say, a Jedi, right? Especially at this age and stuff like that. That could be really, really cool. Kill Bill, obviously, and they did. The actors were also interviewed in this manner, I believe, before this, and they did kind of relay about how much fighting that they have done, how much training that they have done, how much stunt work that they have actually done. So I think we're pretty confident we're going to get a lot of action here.
That's cool.
At an age of the Jedi that they can really kind of, be the Jedi that we think about, and not so much the provincial stuff that we've seen thus far.
Well, hopefully they use the same fight scene coordinators that Ahsoka uses, because whoever did the fight scenes in Ahsoka like knows what they're freaking doing. I mean, those scenes look dope as hell. I hope we get some stuff like that in this one. We'll see.
Who do you think the bad guys are? Because this would be an age where the Sith don't exist, right? Even when Qui-Gon remarked about, maybe encountering a Sith, I mean, that was a big deal. Mace Windu's like, what are you talking about? We haven't seen them for 1,000 years. Who do you think the bad guys might be in this case?
That's interesting. Yeah. I mean, maybe it kind of plays into like dark Jedi, right? Maybe they're not Sith, but they're like these dark side Jedi or something.
Right, they've kind of gone wayward.
Yeah.
Something that did happen in various ages over time. Interesting.
Possible.
Like maybe dark Jedi who have kind of fallen to the dark side, and that's why they become really kind of like, what would you want to call it? Fundamentalist?
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly.
Interesting.
It's an interesting idea.
That's awesome. And I can tell from the way you referred to Phase 1 that you are a big Star Wars The High Republic publishing fan. I can tell. Do we have any other Star Wars The High Republic fans in the house?
Many more than I thought.
Who are also very excited for the Acolyte?
I just have to say, it is such an honor to be here. Like, Star Wars saved my life. I know that
She fake cried. I heard she fake cried.
It's like, even the truth is, like, we are so spoiled now with Star Wars media. I know that it can feel sometimes like, well, I like this thing and I don't like that thing, and if you don't like the Acolyte, that's fine. It doesn't matter. Like the reality is that
That's interesting.
Hey, credit where it's due. I respect that. She's not out there, and we haven't finished her sentence, so maybe. But like, I like this. I like what she's saying here, right? Like too often, fans and even creatives, right? They kind of get into this thing. If you don't like something, you're an ism, you're an ist, you're a this, you're a that. Mm-hmm. I like the fact that she said, you know what? I'm making this thing, and if you don't like it, that's okay. That's the right approach. To give her a fair shake, that's the right approach. Absolutely.
I do agree. That's interesting how she would be on the defensive already. If you don't like the Acolyte, that's fine. So she's obviously probably heard some of the chatter regarding this, right? Sure. From some people in the internet on this thing. That's a very interesting thing. Spill the tea, Dre. What is the gossip word that she is faking this? I mean, hey, this is, I got to be honest, this is the first time I've gotten to this interview this far. I just heard, I think Jay, when he brought this to my attention, he's like, yeah, I think she fake cries. I'm like, really? She's like, yeah, I think so. So it does kind of seem that way. It's just, it almost like she's feigning emotion. Let's see what she says.
Yeah.
the Acolyte, that's fine. It doesn't matter. Like, the reality is that Star Wars in and of itself is not just a vast universe full of many different characters, many different eras, but it is always, always, always about the spiritual journey of what it is to become who you are. And that's why I am so overwhelmed and grateful to be here, and beyond overwhelmed and grateful to be allowed as a filmmaker to experience what it is like to actually tactilely make something in this world. That is beyond my wildest dreams.
Okay.
So, an experience?
Yeah,
this is like one of her first projects?
Well, no, well, she said in this world. So I'm assuming first Star Wars thing.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
But all right, maybe.
But like, she said all the right things there. Here's the thing that's funny to me is like, full disclosure, like I don't really like her.
That's you see.
Right, I'm
And
getting
maybe our bias is unjustified. It's just we haven't heard the best things.
Yeah, and I'm not really like some people. You just you meet them, right, or whatever. You see them on TV or whatever. You're like, oh man, I really like that person. They seem really great, really funny, really down to earth.
Right.
I got to be honest, and this is no disrespect to her at all. It's just the energy I get from her. I'm not loving it. Okay, but here's the thing. There are creatives in Hollywood or whatever like that I have that same feeling towards. Like, I'm not necessarily a huge James Gunn fan as a person, you know?
Yeah.
But his work, a lot of his work is really good. The Guardians movies are fantastic, you know? So I can separate the two. So I don't like her. She comes off a little fake to me. I don't know, but you know what? If she produces a good product, if Acolyte is cool as hell and I love it, then I love it. And I'll give it a fair shake. But just putting it out there, I'm not a huge fan of her necessarily. We'll see what her work is like, though. I'll give it a fair shake.
Yeah, the work might speak for itself. And hey, if it's dope, it's dope. Can't take anything away from that. I know there are a lot of people that are rooting against this series for one reason or another or whatever. Look, if it's here with us and it ain't going anywhere, despite some people's objections to it, hey, we'll root for it to be the best that it can be. Obviously, this is probably a lot of money that the Disney company is actually shelling out here. It's going to make its big debut on Disney Plus. Obviously, they want that platform to be better. We can only hope for the best product at the end of the day. So hopefully it is the best product. And Leslie Headland winds up being the right person for it. We will see. But like I said, I wasn't completely, let's say, transfixed by her interview. One last thing. We'll remark about it really, really short because obviously we're overtime as it is, and this is a discussion for another time to go more in depth with.
Yeah, because I think Family Man wanted to talk about this, so we will definitely deep dive into this topic on a future video.
Right. We just want to say, starting in 2024, new Star Tours destinations. So that is really, really cool that they're actually doing that. Obviously, the the DJ Rex tunes were also released too. So really, really cool stuff coming out of the kind of the parks thing right there. This is really, really exciting. But that's just basically about it. That was kind of Star Wars Celebration in a nutshell. Obviously, there were other things that happened, but for the big stuff, I think that people were most interested in, I think we covered it. We did. And there's a lot here that was announced, that was shown to us, that looks really, really good. I think for me personally, I think it's just about, and Josh from Den of Nerds actually touched upon this. I think he was spot on. The stuff that they showed us and announced to us was fantastic, but we have the same team that brought us all the director problems and all the drama in the past. So it's hard to fully get invested into it. Agreed.
Because it's the same people, the same cast of characters that gave us all this other stuff.
It looms like a shadow, right? Yes. And it's like a cloud. And unfortunately, it will always have that tinge of the dark side.
Yeah, exactly. And that's rough. That's really rough. But at the end of the day, I'm rooting for this studio. I obviously love Star Wars to death, and I want it to succeed. But I don't know. I think it's time to move on from the Kathleen Kennedy era, but I don't know what's going on. Bob Iger hasn't made moves on that, surprisingly, but we'll see. Maybe after Indy 5.
Hopefully, whatever a post-Kennedy world looks like, hopefully it is a little bit more moderated. Hopefully we do get back to just, hey, let the storytelling take center stage. Let's not have all these other kind of things added to it or take over it, let's say. Because as Yoda once said, once you start down the dark path, forever will it dominate your destiny. Consume you, it will. Hopefully it doesn't happen here. And I think overall we're in a decent place considering, well, we still have the looming dark side over us. So we'll see.
We'll see. But Dre, if you could let everybody at home know where they can find you on social media, sir.
the best place to find me is going to be at VashSky on Twitter. It's right down there. And, just go ahead and type that into the Twitter search, and it should pop up for, as Christine Waysense McCarthy would say, for all the
robust
discussion right there. And if you want to see me, well, it's going to be that channel you're watching right now on Orange Girl 55. We have some amazing shows, including the one you're watching right now, OrangeNerd, where we talk about all just the everything behind the camera, right? I think I may have gotten that mixed up before then. No, it's everything like C-suite. It's everything like, well, what you're seeing right here, Star Wars Celebration, all that great stuff outside of the parks. But for some parks content, we also have that as well with Citrus Corner, with our dear friend George, talking about everything Walt Disney World related. We also have my show, Freshly Squeezed, your source for juice, news, and info, squeezed fresh right from the Grove, and Story Geeks with Jay, where we have just amazing conversations about the stories that impact our lives, including The Mandalorian, which is actually going on right now. Obviously, it's third season, covering every single episode. I heard these next 2 episodes are a banger. I think the next one is like 50 minutes. Is that right?
Yeah. We'll see.
We're definitely going to have some fun with that one for sure.
There we go. And I want to thank everybody who joined us today. We got Alia Aloha, Matthew Murr, Michael Ebba, Michael S, Love Low, T.S. Wade, Kika and Luca, David Gravis, and a big shout out to Mr. Jay Shearer, who was with us earlier on in this show. We love Jay, host of Story Geeks. He is a wealth of information, really great guy. So Jay, thank you, sir, for joining us. And like Dre said, we'll be talking Mando in the next few days, the latest episode, so that'll be pretty fun. We're also going to talk a little bit about the Super Mario Brothers movie coming up in a couple of days, and a lot of thoughts in that direction with the whole box office thing, right? I think Sean Nyberg has some thoughts on that.
yes. That was an interesting discussion going on back and forth on Twitter. Who had the biggest film? Over 5 days, 3 days, countries. Oh, it's all good stuff, folks.
It's all good stuff. But we got that coming up. A lot of studio stuff lately right now. So it's been an interesting time. But thank you all so much for watching. Comment down below with all your thoughts on Star Wars Celebration 2023. 2 years, it'll be in Japan. How dope is that?
Yeah, April in Japan.
Can't wait for that. But thank you all so much for watching. And as always, have a wonderful, wonderful day.